Chapter 121, The Female Lead. What if I refuse?
Chu Yang asked.
This five-element city is under the jurisdiction of our Yin-Yang sect. Killing its city lord is equivalent to challenging us, Sect Master Wu said with a faint smile. She wasn't in a rush, calmly waiting for Chu Yang's response. Chu Yang fell silent for a moment. He knew this was blatant coercion. At the root of it, he was simply too weak. I don't get it. Chu Yang looked up at Sect Master Wu. Your Yin-Yang sect is one of the 4 top-tier sects in the Western region. Why would you want someone like me to become your holy son? Let me correct you on one thing, Sect Master Wu replied. I'm not making you the holy son. I'm giving you a chance to compete for the title. Second, you're not just anyone. In the Yin-Yang aura surrounding you, I sensed the most supreme primordial energy. Chu Yang stayed quiet for a while, then gave a bitter smile. Do I even have a choice? No. Sect Master Wu shook her head. The Pure Moon God domain sat at the border of the Western region, just a hair's breadth from the center of the Eastern continent. The domain took its name from the Pure Moon altar. According to legend, at the dawn of the era, heaven and earth were still in chaos. Impure and pure energies were indistinguishable, and the sky and earth were practically the same color. Then the world gave birth to an altar. This altar had the power to purify all things. With its help, the impure and pure energies were finally separated. Eventually, the altar settled at the axis of the world, merging with heaven and earth itself. Around the altar, after millions of years, a sect called the Myriad Beast sect was established. From that moment on, the Western region finally stabilized. The 3 imperial lineages of the Western region were, the 4 supreme sects were. Su Zimo and Ren Pingxing traveled nonstop for nearly 5 days before arriving at 100 Beast City. This city was governed by the Myriad Beast sect. From any direction, east, south, west, or north, one could see different types of beast statues. There were furious lions, chest-thumping gorillas, soaring mystical birds, and coiled dragons roaring beside tigers. The city's design was a marvel of craftsmanship and creativity. Upon entering, Su Zimo and Ren Pingxing noticed that most of the residents were either disciples of the Myriad Beast sect or their relatives. As such, the streets were full of beast folk. These beast folk had human bodies but beast-like features, some with lion heads, some with elephant trunks, others with massive wings sprouting from their backs. In this city, the most popular women fell into 2 categories: those with folded cat ears and dancers with rabbit tails. Feels like we've walked into the animal kingdom. So lively. Ren Pingxing laughed as he looked around. You know, Su Zimo said with a smile, in the eyes of beast folk, their bloodline is noble and we pure-blood humans are considered inferior. Short-sighted, Ren Pingxing replied. Whatever the case, our bloodline is pure. Theirs is mixed. Otherwise, why would they build their sect near the edge of the Pure Moon God domain? Enough of that. Let's find an inn for the night. Tomorrow we head straight to the Pure Moon God domain, Su Zimo said with a smile. Just as they were about to look for lodging, a group approached from ahead. There were 4 people in total, 2 old men who looked like guards standing on either side. In the middle were 2 youths. One held a folding fan and wore white robes. His face was strikingly handsome, so much so that anyone seeing him couldn't help but admire. What a refined young lord. The other youth was tall and brawny, with golden hair that curled naturally and fell messily down his back. He resembled a golden-furred lion king. But when Su Zimo looked at the white-robed, fan-wielding young lord, he froze. In his ears, it was as if he once again heard the wind by Willow River that year, the breeze on his face, and the tearful cries of a girl begging him not to leave. She had pleaded with him to stay and live a simple life with her. But he had walked away, leaving only his back behind. He left with his sword, exuding the unstoppable momentum of the God Meridian realm, vast as the ocean, shrouding tens of thousands of miles like fog. That day, the setting sun dyed half the sky in golden light, and 2 shadows stretched long behind them. He had chosen the path of no return. He said he would defeat Chu Yang. He would carry the heaven's will. He would become the Grand Emperor. He would soar beyond the sky to see a broader world. He would not let love and relationships hold him back. He had been resolute and determined. Even as the girl squatted on the ground, crying with her arms wrapped around her head, he hadn't looked back once. Su Zimo didn't dare utter corny lines like, "I'd recognize you even if you turned to ashes." But now, regardless of any disguise or even if she dressed as a man, he recognized her at a glance. Because that girl had a pair of uniquely spirited eyes that sparkled with something no makeup could hide. Just one glance, and he knew it was her. As he watched her walk quietly past him, Su Zimo felt like he had fallen into a massive trap. The two old men at her sides radiated terrifying power. Su Zimo could tell immediately. Both were Imperial Meridian Realm cultivators. Their appearances were striking too. One looked like a laughing Maitreya Buddha, always smiling with a radiant face. The other looked perpetually miserable and bitter, as if his whole face was contorted into the character for awkward Zhong. They were Taoist sorrow and Taoist joy. Su Zimo had heard of them even in his past life, top-tier experts of the Imperial Meridian realm. This girl travels with two seasoned Imperial Meridian experts at her side? In that moment, Su Zimo felt like everything he had once believed in was a joke. That village girl from a small mountain village? That ordinary life together? All lies. An uncontrollable rage exploded in his mind. All the love and guilt he had buried for so long now turned into roaring fire. Su Zimo admitted he hadn't been the final boss in his past life. He was just a stepping stone on Chu Yang's path to greatness, not even worthy of being his true rival in the end. Pathetic, laughable. Reborn in this life, Su Zimo swore to become the true final boss, a demon lord who made the world tremble. But even so, he still wanted to protect the family he had failed, the few loyal friends he had once had, and the girl he could never forget. Chapter 122 Lan Kuer. You lied to me. Why did you lie to me? Su Zimo roared, charging straight toward the girl. Do you know I always treated you as the most important person in my life? Why did even you lie to me? Su Zimo blocked their path, shouting at the girl in anger. Kid, what do you think you're doing? The golden-haired young man beside her frowned. It was all a lie, wasn't it? I just don't understand what I had that was worth lying to. Su Zimo ignored the golden-haired man, glaring coldly at the girl. Crazy bastard, looking for death? The golden-haired youth stepped in front of Su Zimo, speaking down to him with disdain. Annoying, Su Zimo said flatly. He unsheathed Shadow Tyrant in one swift motion. With a single strike, thunder rumbled. Deep purple lightning surged along the blade. The golden-haired youth clearly hadn't expected Su Zimo to act so abruptly. Before he could even react, his head had already separated from his body. Blood dripped steadily from the curved blade. Su Zimo stood there, eyes still locked on the girl. The death of the golden-haired youth didn't stir the two old men beside her. Even the girl disguised as a refined young lord only furrowed her brow slightly, saying nothing. Did you mistake me for someone else? The girl asked with a frown. Mistaken?
Su Zimo chucked bitterly.
Your name is Lan Kuer. You said you lived in Purple Fragrance Village. You told me your three biggest dreams in life were to watch a sunrise and sunset with the one you love, to visit your favorite lavender fields with them, and to travel the entire continent together, then settle down in a hidden paradise when you're old. All of that was a lie, wasn't it? As he spoke, Su Zimo paused, suddenly laughing bitterly. Purple Fragrance Village? Purple lavender. Even the village name was made up. That place doesn't even exist, does it? How do you know about the things I've always wanted to do? Lan Kuer's eyes widened slightly as she asked, The rest is true, but I don't live in Purple Fragrance Village. I'm from the Middle Continent. Middle Continent? Su Zimo was stunned. Then realization hit. The Lan clan of the Middle Continent? You still haven't told me how you knew my wishes. Lan Kuer nodded, puzzled. Seeing her nod, Su Zimo stood there like he'd been struck by lightning. If she really was from the Lan clan, then everything she'd told him before must have come from the heart. In other words, aside from hiding her background, she hadn't lied about anything. Su Zimo, who had stormed over full of righteous fury, suddenly felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured over his head. His whole outburst was painfully awkward. "You still haven't answered me," Lan Kuo pressed, frowning.
Sorry.
"I mistook you for someone else." Su Zimo forced a smile. "You just look like a friend of mine." Then he grabbed Ren Pingsheng nearby and quickly said, "See? I told you it wasn't her. But no, you insisted. And now look what happened. Totally the wrong person." Pulling along a completely bewildered Ren Pingsheng, Su Zimo turned and hurried away. "Hey!" Lan Kuo called after him. "Don't say I didn't warn you, that guy you just killed? He was the grandson of a core elder of the Myriad Beast sect. You can still run while there's time." As Su Zimo walked off, Daoist Sorrow frowned. "Miss, should I go bring him back?" "Let's follow him for now," Lan Kuo replied, still watching Su Zimo with a strange expression. It wasn't too surprising that he knew her name. Anyone could find that out with some digging. But those 3 wishes, traveling the continent with someone she loved, retiring together in seclusion, those were her deepest dreams, things she had never told anyone. And that was unsettling. Su Zimo and Ren Pingsheng found an inn and rented 2 rooms. Then they went downstairs to grab some food. Ren Pingsheng asked curiously, "Young master, do you know those people from earlier?" "I know her, but she doesn't know me," Su Zimo replied with a smile. The Lan clan, a mysterious family. Legend had it that every generation of the Lan clan had a secret mission. No one knew what that mission was except maybe the grand emperors of each era. But even they chose to stay silent about it. Unlike other great clans, the Lan clan never forced its descendants to do anything. Even the ancient mission passed down through the ages, one could refuse it, and the clan would never object. They didn't interfere in marriage either. Even if a member married a mountain peasant and chose a secluded life, it was allowed. That's why, once Su Zimo learned that Lan Kuo was from the Lan clan, he was convinced she had never lied to him. Su Zimo wasn't planning to reconnect with Lan Kuo just yet. Even if she had forgotten him, they could still get to know each other again. But he knew his top priority now was to cultivate and grow stronger, not get tangled up in romance. Now that he knew she was from the Lan clan, there would be another chance to meet. Even though a part of him desperately wanted to stay by her side, he understood. Now wasn't the time. Footsteps sounded at the door. Su Zimo looked up and saw Lan Kuo walk in, followed by Daoist Sorrow and Daoist Joy. The 3 of them sat at a nearby table. Lan Kuo set down her folding fan and stared at Su Zimo with interest, eyes unblinking. If it were anyone else, Su Zimo would have already drawn his sword. But the girl... He went quiet and started to stand, planning to head back upstairs. But just as he stood, a group of people stormed into the inn. They clearly bore beast-like features, disciples of the Myriad Beast sect. "Who just killed my grandson Cheer?" An old man roared as he strode forward, scanning the room until his eyes locked onto Su Zimo. This elder released the aura of an Imperial Meridian Realm cultivator. His mouth was long and sharp, resembling a rock's beak. His head was almost bald, and his eyes were sharp and gloomy, making people feel extremely uncomfortable. Su Zimo glanced at him once, then kept eating without a word. "What? You have the guts to kill but not to admit it? Scared now?" The old man began walking step by step towards Su Zimo. "Hold him off. I'll handle the rest." "That okay?" Su Zimo asked, setting down his chopsticks and turning to Ren Pingsheng. "I've been wanting to test myself against an Imperial Meridian Realm cultivator anyway." Ren Pingsheng grinned. After inheriting the legacy of Grand Emperor Tunri, he was confident. Even if he couldn't win, he was sure he could hold out long enough. Chapter 123, I Once Had a Dream. As the elder walked toward them step by step, a dark red flame flared up around Ren Pingsheng's body, distorting the space around him as it melted. He threw out a punch, and a trail of pure white smoke ignited in the air. The elder frowned, revealing his true fate, a great rock. The giant bird spread its wings, whipping up a violent storm as it clashed fiercely with Run Pingsheng. Meanwhile, the other myriad beast sect disciples all charged at Su Zimo. With his blade Shadow Tyrant in hand, Su Zimo unleashed the 19th style of the blade. Each step he took, a head fell. However, among the attackers were some venerable Meridian Realm elders, and together they managed to entangle Su Zimo for a while. Of course, this was because Su Zimo hadn't yet activated his hell-suppressing deity physique. At a nearby table, Lan Kuo frowned slightly as she observed, then ordered, "Go help them. Don't worry, Mississippi. I've been itching to smack that kid around anyway." Taoist Sorrow said, rising from his seat. A powerful Imperial Meridian Realm aura burst from him. His true fate was a long river, and as it flowed slowly through the air, a sorrowful wailing sound echoed from within. Those who heard it couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sadness in their hearts. "I told you to help them, not the myriad beast sect," Lan Kuo snapped, clearly irritated. Taoist Sorrow froze, his already awkward face growing even more contorted. Seeing that Taoist Sorrow had stepped in to help Ren Pingsheng block the myriad beast's elders, Lan Kuo turned to Taoist Joy and said, "You go stop the disciples. I want to talk to him alone. Miss, we're supposed to be allying with the myriad beast sect. This might cause complications," Taoist Joy said hesitantly, but his smiling face never wavered. "You teaching me how to do things now?" Lan Kuo tilted her head slightly and gave him a cool stare. "I wouldn't dare." Taoist Joy shook his head at once, then stepped onto the battlefield. At that moment, Su Zimo had just finished cutting down another myriad beast's disciple when he felt someone tug at his clothes. He turned to see Lan Kuo, grabbing his sleeve and leading him out of the inn, while Taoist Joy held off the charging disciples. The two of them arrived in a quiet alley behind the inn. Su Zimo looked at her with a soft, teasing smile. Then, suddenly, a streak of sword light flashed through the air. Lan Kuo drew a 3-foot sword, its blade glowing with a pale white light. The cold edge pressed against Su Zimo's neck, and time seemed to freeze in that moment. A breeze swept down the alley, kicking up a few specks of dust. Warm sunlight bathed the entrance to the alley. Lan Kuo's long hair, once tied up neatly, now hung loose behind her, flowing like ink. Her spirited eyes stared silently at Su Zimo. Su Zimo chuckled and said, "The last time we saw each other, you were crying and begging me not to leave. Never thought our reunion would be with swords drawn." "What are you talking about?"
Lan Kuo frowned.
"I don't know you." "Nothing, just reminiscing." Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. "How do you know about my wishes?" Lan Kuo asked coldly. "You'd better explain yourself honestly. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now." "You should kill me. I deserve to die." Su Zimo took a deep breath and said emotionally, "Once, a sincere love was right in front of me. I didn't cherish it. I only regretted it when it was too late." "Speak normally." Lan Kuo pressed the sword even closer to his neck. "Do you believe in fate?"
"No."
"Do you believe in destiny?"
"No."
Su Zimo fell silent for a moment, then smiled. "You don't believe in anything. How am I supposed to explain this to you? You think I won't kill you?" Lan Kuo sneered. "You should know, only dead men keep secrets." "I once had a dream," Su Zimo said softly. "To be honest, I'm not even sure if it was a dream or real." "What dream?" Lan Kuo asked, eyes still locked on him. "In the dream, you said you loved me. You said you wanted to have kids with me. You wanted to live in a hidden paradise far from the world. You begged me not to leave. But I turned you down," Su Zimo said quietly. "Nonsense. I'd never say that." Lan Kuo blurted out, shouting in embarrassment. "I'm serious. I'm not lying," Su Zimo replied. "Even though the dream ended, the heavens gave me another chance. I swore to myself this time I'd treat you right. You like kids? No problem. In the future, we'll have a whole bunch. If one's not enough, we'll have 10. Or 20. Don't worry, I can handle it, he added sincerely. Try joking again and I'll cut you, Lan Kuo growled, tilting the sword threateningly. I'm not joking, Su Zimo said with a bitter smile. The breeze lifted his long hair as he looked at her seriously. You know who I thought of most in my dream, right before I died? Besides my parents, it was you. What I feel for you isn't just love. It's also deep regret. My father is the Vice Lord of true martial sacred ground. I'm not lacking resources or women. Do you think I need to lie to you? True martial sacred ground? Lan Kuo froze slightly, then replied, You said yourself it was a dream. Maybe you were just daydreaming. Su Zimo didn't answer. He went quiet. You tell a good story, Lan Kuo said flatly. Thanks. Su Zimo gave a faint laugh, though it was tinged with sadness. He couldn't help wondering. Once something is lost, can it ever be restored? Like a shattered cup, no matter how much you try, you can't put it back together. Lan Kuo looked into Su Zimo's eyes. They were deep, dark, like still water, yet somehow aged and heavy with experience. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul. Through them, you can see a person's truest self. She didn't know why, but as she looked into those eyes full of stories and sorrow, her heart ached, for no reason. She didn't understand it either, but she felt an inexplicable sadness for the young man in front of her. Crazy bastard, she muttered, sheathing her sword and turning away without looking back. I'll let you off this time, because your story was interesting. Hey, my name is Su Zimo. Who wants to know your name? This story's far from over. I can tell it to you bit by bit. Don't you want to know what happened between us? Nope, she replied flatly, but her feet stopped. She turned her head to look back at Su Zimo. A breeze rustled through the willow trees by the alley, swirling around before drifting through the alley entrance, lifting her hair into a graceful dance in the sunlight. Chapter 124. My dad is Su Qingshan. If your story isn't good enough, I'll kill you, Lan Kuo said haughtily, lifting her gaze towards Su Zimo. I'm heading to the Pure Moon God domain. Come with me, and I'll tell you the story along the way, Su Zimo replied. Lan Kuo hesitated for a moment, then finally nodded. From now on, you should call me Zimo, he said. Not a chance. I'll call you Kuo then. Scram. Legend has it that after the Pure Moon altar was placed at the axis of heaven and earth, the world descended for elemental spiritual forces. Thunder rumbled from the east, forming a lightning region. Blazing fire fell to the west, creating a fire region. Hurricanes and floodwaters descended on the south and north, forming a wind region and a water region, respectively. The altar was surrounded by these four elemental domains, and people collectively referred to them as the Pure Moon God domain. Many cultivators would visit to refine their bodies. Cultivating elemental meridian techniques within the corresponding regions would often yield twice the results with half the effort. Millions of years later, the Myriad Beasts sect was founded here. At first, they tried to claim the entire domain as their own. But countless rogue cultivators protested. This place was formed by nature, not built by the sect. Independent cultivators already had a hard time training, lacking resources. Now that they had finally found a place to assist with cultivation, they weren't about to give it up easily. On top of that, several other first-tier sects quietly sabotaged the Myriad Beasts sect's claim, forcing them to compromise. They designated the altar center as a forbidden zone, setting that as the boundary. The outer four regions were still open to independent cultivators. Su Zimo took Lan Kuo to the northern water region. By the time they arrived, the place was already packed with independent cultivators. The entrance to the water region was a massive, wide gate made of flowing water. Lan Kuo laughed. The entire Myriad Beasts sect is probably hunting you down, and you still have the guts to walk right into their territory? My dad is Su Qingshan, Su Zimo said calmly. The Myriad Beasts sect might not be an imperial lineage, but it's still a supreme sect with real strength, Lan Kuo replied. My dad is Su Qingshan. The two walked through the transparent water gate, stepping into a completely different world. It was as if a crystal-clear dome separated this area from the outside. Both the sky and the earth were covered in a thin, blue, translucent film. Walking on it caused ripples to spread beneath their feet. Above them, a light drizzle fell. But this was no ordinary rain. It was infused with spiritual energy. Just as they entered, they heard a burst of excited cheering nearby. "What's going on over there? Let's go check it out," Lan Kuer said to Su Zimo. He nodded and tried to push his way through the crowd but found it too packed to move. After thinking for a moment, Su Zimo pulled out a large pile of spirit crystals from his storage ring and shouted, "Hey! Who dropped a few thousand spirit crystals over here? Hurry up and grab them." The crowd turned immediately. For these resource-starved rogue cultivators, even a few dozen spirit crystals were precious thousands. Unheard of. Su Zimo threw the pile of crystals into the air, creating a spirit crystal rain. As everyone dashed to snatch them up, Su Zimo grabbed Lan Kuer's hand and pulled her into the crowd. Feeling his grip, Lan Kuer's heart trembled. She instinctively tried to pull away, but the more she struggled, the tighter his grip became. She glanced at Su Zimo, who was too busy pushing forward to even look at her. He mumbled under his breath, "Shameless. Kuer, looks like someone's confessing their love up ahead," Su Zimo said aloud. Lan Kuer gave up pulling and let him hold her hand. They looked up to see a young man in white robes standing before a crowd, holding a bouquet. The flowers were second-tier spiritual herbs, forget-me-nots. These flowers symbolized eternal companionship and were beloved among couples throughout the primordial heartlands. "Yuer, be with me." A friend once joked that fairies existed in this world. I scoffed at the idea. I didn't believe in perfect people. But then I met you, and I realized fairies really do exist. The young man looked at the girl with deep, genuine emotion as he spoke. The girl, wearing a long white dress, had a quiet and elegant aura. At first, she looked shy and hesitant, but as the young man poured his heart out, her cheeks flushed red. "Who is that guy?" Su Zimo asked a big man next to him. "You don't know Su Chang'an? One of the 8 heavenly talents of the Azure Wood Empire. They call him the literary swordsman, a master of both poetry and swordsmanship. He's super famous," the big man replied excitedly. Su Zimo gave him a flat look. "You're a grown man. Why are you so excited? What? Can't a man admire Su Chang'an?" The big man gave Su Zimo a sidelong glance, then looked at Lan Kuer beside him. With a deep and serious expression, he said, "Friend, take it from someone who's been there. You like women now only because you haven't met the right man yet." "Legendary." Su Zimo nodded solemnly, then quickly stepped away from him. The confession was reaching its climax. The girl's final wall of hesitation was about to fall. Su Chang'an slightly tilted his head, looked into her eyes, and recited softly, "The river and sky are pure, not a speck of dust. A lonely moon hangs in the empty heavens. Who by the river first saw the moon rise? When did the moon first shine on men?" As the poem ended, the girl threw herself into Su Chang'an's arms. Su Zimo turned to find Lan Kuer's eyes red, seemingly moved by what she'd just witnessed. "What are you doing?" he asked in annoyance. "I just want someone to write me a poem too," Lan Kuer said longingly. "A poem that lives on through the ages, so that our love story becomes part of history. That's easy. I'll make one up right now. Listen closely," Su Zimo said with disdain. Seeing her expectant eyes, he cleared his throat and began. "O great sea, you are made of water. O horse, you have 4 legs. O beauty, you have large eyes and a mouth." "Shut up." "Yes, ma'am." Chapter 125, This Object is Fated with Me. Leaving the romantic spectacle behind, Su Zimo led Lan Kuer deep into the water region. By now, cultivators were few and far between. Along their path, they barely encountered a soul. At the very heart of the water region, a mighty river had transformed into countless water dragons, rampaging through the area. Each collision between dragons felt like the sky and earth were collapsing, and from within, Faint dragon roars could be heard. The vast sea surged with towering waves, rolling violently before crashing deep into the ocean and erupting like explosions. This was a folded space, though it didn't look large. The sea itself was immeasurable in depth. Su Zimo pulled out Shadow Tyrant, sat cross-legged, and carefully guided the blade toward the center of the torrents. Each impact from the water dragons caused the blade to tremble. Yet with every collision, the blade shone brighter, growing ever more refined and pure. Water flows from the heavens, rushing to the sea and never returning. As Su Zimo watched Shadow Tyrant undergo its baptism in the torrents, his heart gradually eased. Lan Kur sat beside him, bored out of her mind. "Keep telling me the story. What happened after you fainted and ended up in Purple Fragrance Village?" After stabilizing Shadow Tyrant, Su Zimo split off part of his consciousness and began to speak. "You found me by the river and saved me. At first glance, your heart raced, probably because of how unbelievably handsome I was. Then you carried me home. I was unconscious at the time. As for whether you did anything to me while I was out, well, that's anyone's guess. Shameless. You think I'd fall for you?"
Lan Kar snorted.
"Do you want to hear the story or not?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "You tell it or I do?"
Ido, Lan Kar nodded obediently.
"You tell it." "My days in Purple Fragrance Village were the happiest time of my life," Su Zimo said earnestly as he continued. The two of them sat by the roaring ocean. The torrents surged with waves and water dragons circled, slamming against Shadow Tyrant. The young man quietly told his tale. The girl watched him, smiling at the funny parts, sometimes playfully punching him with her tiny fists. Su Zimo had so much he wanted to say to Lan Kur. The stories he told were memories from their time together in Purple Fragrance Village. Of course, he embellished a few details, mainly to make himself seem more handsome, wise, and heroic. He spoke for 7 days and 7 nights. By the time Shadow Tyrant had fully absorbed the water element, he finally stopped. For the storyteller, it was a reliving of experience. For the listener, it was living those moments alongside him.
Su Zimo regit Shadow Tyrant.
With one swing, it roared not only with thunder but also with the power of a heavenly river crashing down from the 9 heavens. He stepped through the air, his purple robe billowing. His face, usually mischievous when telling stories, now looked resolute and fierce. When he slashed, thunder dragons wrapped around water dragons, roaring in unison, sending towering waves blasting into the sky. Lan Kur simply stood there watching him, her gaze deep and unreadable. Now that the water element tempering was complete, Su Zimo prepared to lead Lan Kur westward, toward the fire region. Between the water and fire regions was a small vacuum zone, and beyond that stood another massive gate, a gate of fire. As they entered the fire region, they were greeted by a vast, boundless sea of flames. The temperature near the entrance was mild, but the deeper one went, the hotter it became. In this blazing domain, numerous fire spirits had taken the form of animals, running wildly. Firebirds soared overhead. Fiery lions rolled through the sea of flames like mischievous cubs. These spirits had no consciousness, no will to attack. Even if you killed them, it was like snuffing out a flame, meaningless. The two didn't walk far before Su Zimo suddenly stopped. From the flame wall beside them, spirit force began to ripple. A lotus of blazing fire appeared out of nowhere. About the size of a palm, it radiated a rich fragrance despite being formed from flames. Just as Su Zimo reached out to pick it, someone beat him to it. A flash of blue light passed by, and the fiery lotus disappeared.
Su Zimo frowned.
A blue-robed Taoist had appeared beside him. The Taoist, holding a horsetail whisk, smiled and said, "Boundless heavenly Lord's blessings upon you, benefactor. This lotus is fated with me." Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. "Taoist, you're mistaken. This lotus is clearly fated with me." "You misunderstand, benefactor," the Taoist said with a cheerful grin, revealing the pressure of an Imperial Meridian Realm expert. "Tell me, who is holding the lotus now?" Su Zimo chuckled. then took out a jade pendant gifted to him by Su Qingshan. He said with a smile, "Then I'll leave the decision to you, Taoist." As Su Zimo looked about ready to crush the pendant, the Taoist's face froze. He laughed awkwardly and said, "Divine treasures belong to the virtuous. I am unworthy. Clearly, this lotus is fated with you, benefactor." "Too kind," Su Zimo said, taking the lotus from the Taoist's hand with a smile. The Taoist gave him a long, meaningful look and said, "Until fate brings us together again, benefactor." As the Taoist walked away, Su Zimo frowned slightly. An Imperial Meridian Realm expert fighting over a Tier 4 spiritual herb? That didn't make sense. "Old fox and little fox," Lan Kuo muttered with a wrinkle of her nose. "You don't get it?" Su Zimo said, peeling open the lotus bud and revealing 8 lotus seeds inside. Each seed sparkled like a star, and they all had different colors, 8 in total. Su Zimo also pulled a pure white thread from the lotus stem. Using spirit force, he bored tiny holes in each seed and strung them together on the thread. A 7-colored bracelet was now complete. Su Zimo gently took Lan Kuo's right hand and slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. "Pretty, isn't it?" "Childish," Lan Kuo replied with a slight smirk. "This bracelet's way more valuable than that guy's forget-me-not," Su Zimo said. "So what? Tier 4 herb over Tier 2? Big deal," Lan Kuo replied. "To me, there's no difference." "No, it's not about grade." Su Zimo shook his head. "It's because this bracelet carries all of my love for you." Chapter 126. A Solo Celebration. "Have you said that to a lot of girls?"
Lan Kuo suddenly asked.
"I'm not interested in other girls," Su Zimo replied, shaking his head. Lan Kuo gently bit her lip, giving Su Zimo a blank stare before turning her gaze elsewhere. From then on, the two fell into a subtle silence as they continued traveling. At the deepest part of the fire region, a sea of flames hung upside down in midair. Thick magma boiled and steamed with scorching heat. Below the sea of fire, space twisted and warped. The air was nearly melted away, and loud crackling sounds exploded in every direction. Sparks surged through the fire like leaping dragons, and the fire spirits were denser here than anywhere else. Countless flame-shaped beasts ran wild through the firestorm. Su Zimo floated Shadow Tyrant into the heart of the fire and sat cross-legged nearby, splitting a portion of his focus to continue telling stories to Lan Kuo. The blazing fire painted his face red. Lan Kuo took out a handkerchief and gently wiped the sweat off his brow. Seeing Su Zimo smiling at her, she quickly clarified, "Don't get the wrong idea. This is just payment for your story."
Su Zimo smiled.
The girl was a lot like the one he remembered, but not quite the same. Several days later, the fire attribute tempering was complete. The dragon carved into the blade of Shadow Tyrant now looked more lifelike than ever, even emitting faint dragon roars. The weapon had successfully advanced to the Heaven tier. Looking at his newly upgraded blade, Su Zimo noted that in addition to the Shadow Dragon, the weapon now bore marks of thunder, torrential water, and flame. He put away the blade and took Lan Kuo's hand, leading her toward the wind region. This time, Lan Kuo didn't resist. She simply let him hold her hand. Along the way, aside from recounting their own past, Su Zimo also told her strange tales and legends from around the continent. The sky was drowned in endless sandstorms. In the distance, massive whirlwinds of sand raged like violent hurricanes. This wasn't just a single storm. It was countless sandstorms merging and multiplying, forming an even larger and more chaotic system. Among the 4 elemental domains, the wind region was recognized by all cultivators as the most dangerous. As such, few dared enter. Fierce gales howled through the air, ripping apart space itself in places. The woo of the wind sounded like the cries of demons rising from the earth. Su Zimo tightened his clothes and gripped Lan Kuo's hand firmly as they ventured deeper into the wind region. The sand was so intense it was hard to keep their eyes open. Not long after they entered, a voice called out in the distance. "It wasn't until I met you that I believed fairies exist in this world." Su Zimo turned and saw a man standing amid the wind and sand, holding a forget-me-not flower, shouting a love confession. His white robes flapped violently, and his long hair whipped in the wind. Though he looked a bit disheveled, he still gave off a strange sense of charm. Upon closer inspection, Su Zimo realized it was Su Chang'an, the same man he'd seen confessing to another girl back in the water region. That so-called literary swordsman, one of the 8 heavenly talents of the Azure Wood Empire. But this time he wasn't confessing to Yuer. Instead, the woman before him wore a black robe and had a striking, heroic demeanor. "Damn, this guy's a real stud horse," Su Zimo said in disbelief. "To be this smooth in such a short time? Truly impressive." He turned to Lan Kuer and smirked. "Take a good look. That's what a scumbag looks like. And to think you were moved by his poem earlier." Lan Kuer snorted and walked forward. In the center of the swirling sandstorms, the black-robed woman heard Su Chang'an's words and chuckled. "You've probably said that same line to dozens of girls, haven't you? Why won't you believe me?" Su Chang'an looked heartbroken. "If I could, I'd tear out my heart and show it to you, just so you'd know how much I love you." "Great, let me help you," a sudden voice said coldly. Startled, Su Chang'an turned, only to see Lan Kuer approaching, her aura surging. Her power as a peak desolate meridian realm cultivator was even stronger than the surrounding winds. She walked through the sandstorm with unshakable presence. "Who are you?" Su Chang'an asked cautiously. "Just a kind passerby," Lan Kuer said with a smile and attacked. With both fists clenched, deep blue spirit force erupted around her. Su Chang'an quickly drew his sword to defend, but her single punch sent him flying. He steadied himself mid-air, eyes narrowing. His sword pulsed with dark energy. This was his signature meridian technique, an elegant and powerful sword style that looked like a painting in motion. Every swing felt like ink strokes on a celestial scroll, swooping like an eagle, standing firm like a pine on a cliff. Under this dazzling assault, Lan Kuer was briefly suppressed, forced onto the defensive. Just as Su Zimo was about to step in, he felt a strange, mysterious aura rise from Lan Kuer's body. Light blue spirit force condensed into a liquid state, and the surrounding air began to swirl violently. A blue glow enveloped her. Her skin turned dark blue, so did her eyes and flowing hair. As the energy intensified, Su Zimo felt a strange emotion bloom in his chest, something deep, inexplicable. The glow around Lan Kuer surged. Facing Su Chang'an's blinding sword rain, she raised both hands, and space itself collapsed. All the sword shadows vanished, and Su Chang'an's sword shattered into fragments. Before he could react, Lan Kuer had him by the throat. His face paled in panic as she stared him down with cold, killing intent. Still trying to charm her, he forced a smile. "You know, someone once told me fairies were real. I didn't believe it, until I met Yo Dash." Crack. Before he finished, his neck was twisted violently and broken. Then, Lan Kuer grabbed his sword and cut open his chest. Her hands soaked in blood. She ripped out his still-beating heart and turned to the stunned black-robed woman. "I dug it out for you. See for yourself, was he sincere?" The woman swallowed hard, her face deathly pale. Then Lan Kuer turned back, blood dripping from the heart. She smiled sweetly at Su Zimo. "Zimo, look." His heart was a cheater's heart. Su Zimo forced a dry smile and nodded. He finally understood the saying, "Love really can change a person." "What about your heart, Zimo?"
Lan Kuer asked curiously.
"If you want to see it, you can dig it out yourself," he replied. "Okay, I hope you weren't lying to me all this time," she said, stepping closer. In her left hand, the bloody heart. In her right, Su Chang'an's sword. As the blade touched his chest, Su Zimo closed his eyes. To someone with the fused blood of the hell-suppressing deity physique, the heart wasn't vital. But he knew, if she really dug out his heart, their story would end here. He was ready for it, but the expected pain never came. Instead, a warm body wrapped around him in a tight embrace. He caught the sweet scent of her blue hair and opened his eyes slightly. She had buried her head in his chest and didn't want to let go. Neither of them spoke. The sandstorms howled around them. Above, the sun quietly bore witness. In the innermost part of the wind region, the sandstorms were so fierce that most cultivators couldn't even enter. Su Zimo sat cross-legged, letting Shadow Tyrant float in midair, refining itself in the storm while he continued telling their story. Days passed, and the first stage of refinement was complete. Thunder and water surged across the upper half of the blade. Fire and wind howled through the lower curve. The shadow dragon in the center finally opened its once-closed eyes. Staring at it long enough, one could almost hear its roar echo through the mind. That day, there was no wind. The sunset lit the sky in beautiful colors. I walked away from you. That was the last time we met. Until I woke up from the dream, I never saw you again. Su Zimo's voice was soft. The story had come to an end. Lan Kur looked at him and asked seriously, "If one day I leave, will you come looking for me?" "I don't know. You must. You have to." "All right. When?" "I don't know. I'll wait for you. Always." "Okay." The sandstorm still raged. The sun dipped slowly toward the western horizon. Lan Kur looked up at the dark, starless sky and said stubbornly, "Hold me while I sleep."
Su Zimo nodded.
At his cultivation level, sleep no longer mattered. Under the silver moonlight, he found a quieter spot, held her in his arms, and slowly drifted off. He remembered a writer once said, "Some people want to sleep not because they're tired, but because they miss the feeling of sleeping." That night, no words were exchanged. They simply held each other, feeling each other's heartbeat. When the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Lan Kur sat up silently, watching Su Zimo sleep. She tied her long hair neatly, leaned down, and kissed him gently on the lips. Then she turned and left. "Last time you walked away. This time, let me be the bad guy." In the distance, Taoist joy and Taoist sorrow waited for her. Her figure slowly disappeared into the dawn. Minutes later, Su Zimo opened his eyes. He smiled faintly, stood up, and silently walked off. Children are ruled by emotion. They throw tantrums for what they can't have. But in the world of adults, we learn to think of others. Lan Kur understood. Su Zimo wasn't a man tied down by love. He had ambition. He had his path. She could have stayed by his side, but that would have hindered his martial journey. So, she left. Su Zimo also knew she was gone, but he didn't stop her, because he knew cultivation came first, and walking the path of the heavens meant choosing fate. He would go find her, but not now. The martial path is a lonely one, and loneliness is just a celebration with no one else around. Just as Su Zimo stepped out of the wind region, he saw Taoist Sorrow standing nearby, waiting for him. As Su Zimo emerged, Taoist Sorrow frowned slightly and said coldly, "Kid, don't say I didn't warn you. Stay away from our young lady from now on. Since when do I need you to tell me how to live my life?" Su Zimo replied indifferently, "Don't get cocky just because you have some talent. Do you even know who we are?" Taoist Sorrow scoffed. "And do you know who I am?" Su Zimo shot back. Taoist Sorrow was taken aback. Truthfully, he didn't know Su Zimo's background. He had watched Lan Kur grow up. While the Lan clan never interfered with their children's relationships, he personally had a poor impression of Su Zimo and had taken it upon himself to intervene. "My father is Su Qingshan, Vice Lord of True Martial Sacred Ground, and currently the one holding real power in the sect," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Taoist Sorrow's expression stiffened. True Martial Sacred Ground, the sect founded by the #1 human emperor, Grand Emperor Zhenwu himself, had produced 4 Grand Emperors across its history. Its heritage rivaled, if not exceeded, that of the Lan clan. Taoist Sorrow paused for a moment, then muttered, "True Martial Sacred Ground is strong, but dash. No, but even in your middle continent, True Martial Sacred Ground would be seen as a superpower." Su Zimo interrupted coldly. "Don't think too highly of yourself. You're just a dog. You really think I couldn't kill you and walk away clean? The Lan clan wouldn't dare touch me. Taoist Soro's face darkened. He snorted and turned to leave, flying off into the sky. He knew staying any longer would only lead to more humiliation. Watching Taoist Soro leave, Su Zimo chuckled and shook his head. In truth, both Taoist Joy and Taoist Soro were among the finest of Imperial Meridian Realm cultivators. Their lives were full of drama and contrast. Taoist Joy was born into a wealthy noble clan. From the moment he was born, he lacked for nothing. When his martial potential was tested, he was found to have first-tier talent and was taken in as a personal disciple by a local sect leader. Thus began a smooth and blessed cultivation path. He reached the Meridian Forging Realm at 20, the Desolate Meridian Realm by 50. At 200 years old, he entered the Paragon Meridian Realm, and after 700 years of cultivation, he had reached the Imperial Meridian Realm. This speed wouldn't be remarkable for someone in an imperial lineage, but keep in mind, he had started as a rogue cultivator, and even the first sect he joined was small and insignificant. In contrast, Taoist Soro's life was one of tragedy. His mother died in childbirth. His father was later butchered by bandits. He wandered homeless as a child and survived for years as a beggar. At one point, he even lost his sanity. During this madness, he accidentally consumed a divine herb, which changed his fate entirely. Eventually, fate brought Taoist Soro and Taoist Joy together. They shared their life stories with each other. One had endured the full weight of human suffering. The other had lived a smooth, blessed life. From their shared reflections, they both gained enlightenment, comprehending the Tao of sorrow and joy, and eventually joined the Lan clan. Not long after Taoist Soro left, Renpingshing flew in to meet Su Zimo. "Young master, the entire Myriad Beast sect is now hunting you down," he said with a helpless expression. "I heard they're offering an Earth-grade weapon to anyone who reports your whereabouts. Do they know who I am?" Su Zimo asked. "Probably not." Renpingsheng shook his head. "Want to do something crazy with me?"
Su Zimo grinned.
"Like what?" Ren asked, confused. "Destroy the Myriad Beast sect," Su Zimo said calmly, word by word. Renpingsheng was stunned. He quickly said, "Young master, we're not at that level of conflict with them yet. If you reveal your identity and offer a sincere apology, they wouldn't dare touch you. I'm not interested in apologizing. So, the only option is to eliminate them," Su Zimo said plainly. Renpingsheng went silent, then sighed. "But the two of us alone can't destroy such a powerful sect. That's why I need your emperor's weapon," Su Zimo replied. He brought Renpingsheng to the vacuum zone between the wind and fire regions. In the center of this space was a thin black membrane, a powerful barrier. Su Zimo knew this was a formation, and inside it lay the very heart of the pure moon god domain, the location of the pure moon altar. This formation was level 8. Anyone below the Empyrean Meridian realm couldn't break it by force. Even those above that level would need significant time to do so, and in that time the Myriad Beast sect would definitely react. Su Zimo's goal was to enter quietly without alerting anyone. He said to Renpingsheng, "Have your sun-devouring axe find one of the formation's nodes, swallow it, then take its place, just enough to open a gap and let us in." Ren looked confused but obeyed. He summoned the spirit of the axe from within the Emperor's weapon. Dark energy coiled around the axe as a booming voice echoed from within. "Boy, why have you awakened me?" Ren quickly relayed Su Zimo's plan. The weapon spirit scanned the formation and then said proudly, "A grade 8 formation? Even most Grand Emperor true treasures can't pass through it quietly. But my devouring attribute counteracts this perfectly. Boy, this will be the second task I've done for you."
Raiden nodded.
He knew that after 10 completed tasks, the spirit would be granted freedom, per its agreement with the original emperor. The sun-devouring axe released a shroud of black mist. Dark energy cloaked part of the formation. Wisps of devouring force swirled outward. After some time, a 1-meter-tall opening appeared in the black membrane. Su Zimo and Renpingsheng quickly stepped inside. The axe spirit had simply devoured one node. After the two entered, it replaced the node and sealed the entrance behind them. Now inside the core of the pure moon god domain, they found themselves in a vast space. By Su Zimo's estimate, it was even larger than the other 4 elemental regions combined. He led Ren eastward for half a day until they finally saw a barrier up ahead. This barrier sealed off a 100-mile radius, covering the true heart of the pure moon domain. At its gate sat an old man in green Taoist robes, calmly guarding the entrance. Chapter 128 Fusion. Although the elder sitting before the barrier didn't emit a powerful aura, he gave off a presence as deep as the sea, unfathomable in both depth and breadth. Ren Pingxing had always thought himself capable of holding his own against most Emperor Meridian cultivators. But the moment he saw this old man, he didn't even feel the urge to fight. An Empyrean Meridian cultivator, he muttered, pupils contracting. The Myriad Beasts sect really treats the pure moon altar as something priceless. Not only is there a level 8 barrier outside, but they even have an Empyrean Meridian Guardian inside. It's the foundation of their sect, of course they value it, Su Zimo replied with a smile. A sect like the Myriad Beasts sect only had a handful of Empyrean Meridian experts. Each one was an invaluable asset. And now one of them was guarding the altar personally. That alone showed the significance of the pure moon altar. So how do we get in? Ren Pingxing asked. The pure moon altar once purified the chaotic and pure energies of the early era. Since then, it's become fused with this world, Su Zimo explained. But few people know it's actually composed of a main altar and several subaltars. If we find a subaltar, we can use it to bypass the barrier and teleport directly to the main altar. In his previous life, Su Zimo recalled that it was Chu Yang who had found the subaltar. After Su Zimo had been defeated by Chu Yang at Nether Dragon Ravine, he became obsessed with collecting intelligence about Chu Yang to one day exact revenge. Moreover, back when the primordial chaos bead carried him into the River of Fate, Su Zimo had witnessed a vision of the pure moon altar fusing with the world. Then does young master know where the subaltar is? Ren asked. It should be scattered nearby the main altar, Su Zimo said. Have your sun-devouring axe help us search. It was tempered by fate. Since the pure moon altar shares the same origin as heaven's will itself, it should sense it. Ren was puzzled. To the world at large, fate was shrouded in mystery. Everyone said that bearing the heavens will made one unrivaled. But what exactly fate was, only the grand emperors of the past truly knew. Ren didn't know how Su Zimo knew fate and the pure moon altar shared the same source, but figured it must come from ancient records within an imperial lineage. He relayed Su Zimo's instructions to the artifact spirit. This is the 3rd task I'll do for you, the spirit replied calmly. Even the artifact spirit found it strange. After all, each request to a Grand Emperor True Treasure was a major opportunity. Yet Ren had now spent 2 tasks helping someone else. Black mist swirled around the axe as it began sensing the surrounding space. After a long while, the spirit's voice came through again. Head southeast. There's a familiar aura in that direction, though I can't say for sure. Su Zimo and Ren immediately dashed southeast. There were many Myriad Beasts sect disciples patrolling the perimeter, but most of them were low-level cultivators. Su Zimo and Ren easily avoided them. Talented disciples rarely took such menial tasks anyway. Keep going. The aura is getting stronger, the axe spirit urged. The 2 sped up again. About 10 minutes later, as they passed a small hill, the spirit told them to stop. It's right underneath here. Dig. Su Zimo exchanged a glance with Ren, then went to keep watch while Ren gripped his massive axe and began digging. After digging down nearly 100 meters, Ren's excited shout rang out from the pit. Young master, I found something. Come see if this is it. Su Zimo jumped into the pit and saw Ren holding a palm-sized round altar. It resembled a small pagoda, with an oval base and 5 tiers, each engraved with detailed imagery, flowers, birds, fish, beasts. The topmost tier was shrouded in a misty gray fog, chaotic and indistinct. The subaltar glowed faintly with light purple energy, gently pulsing. Go keep watch, Su Zimo told Rin. I'll refine it here. Rin nodded and climbed out of the pit. Su Zimo sat cross-legged, planning to absorb the subaltar into his true fate world, then slowly refine it using his world's power. But the moment he absorbed it, the subaltar trembled excitedly, as if thrilled. Then Su Zimo sensed something even more unexpected. The subaltar wanted to fuse with his true fate world. It stunned him. Earthly treasures like this were usually extremely difficult to refine, but now they were essentially begging to merge with him. Once the altar took root inside his true fate world, it erupted in bright violet light and began purifying the world's chaotic and pure energies. Su Zimo could now use the subaltar fully. Sensing the location of the main altar, he opened a portal using its power. The portal's only function was to travel to the main altar. It couldn't lead anywhere else. Su Zimo and Rin stepped through and were instantly engulfed by spatial turbulence. At the same time, space beside the main pure moon altar distorted and a portal opened. The two stepped out carefully, scanning their surroundings to make sure they hadn't been detected, then finally relaxed and took in the sight. In front of them stood an enormous altar, identical in shape to the subaltar, but magnified countless times. White mist flowed around it, and the entire altar gave off an awe-inspiring presence, like a pillar holding up the heavens. Hundreds of flowers bloomed on its surface. Carp leapt from sculpted streams. Massive birds soared, and tigers roared across carved plains. Behind the altar lay a massive blood pool, at least 1,000 miles wide, filled to the brim, forming a sea of blood. Yet the surface of this blood sea was completely still. Surprisingly, it didn't smell like iron or rot. Instead, it had a fragrance that invigorated the soul. "What do we do now?" Ren asked, awed. Su Zimo didn't reply. He simply took out the Starcloud bottle from his storage ring, the one containing the essence blood of the nine-headed god beast, which he had obtained in the Blood Demon Hidden Realm. Chapter 129, Stripped of Flesh. Although it was called Essence Blood, after centuries of mutation, combined with the lingering resentment from the god beast's death, it had become something else entirely. A drop of demonic blood. Su Zimo stepped into the air, his eyes focused as he arrived at the topmost tier of the pure moon altar. He placed the demonic blood into the gray fog that filled the uppermost layer. Immediately, the altar began to tremble. It was as if the entire structure had been awakened. The carvings on each tier, previously dormant, now seemed to come alive. A sacred, radiant light burst from the altar. This divine light appeared capable of purifying all evil. It radiated a holy, cleansing energy that made one instinctively revere it. As it wrapped around the demonic blood, thick black smoke began to pour from the blood's surface. Twisted, vicious faces of god beasts, each showing expressions of agony and hatred from the moment of their deaths, appeared within the dark mist, trying to escape the light's grasp. Piercing screams rang out as the divine light and the black mist battled for dominance. But over time, the divine light began to weaken. Su Zimo immediately pulled out large quantities of spirit crystals from his storage ring and threw them into the fog. As the altar absorbed these spirit crystals, the light grew stronger once again, slowly overpowering the demonic blood. Su Zimo kept throwing spirit crystals without restraint. He didn't even know how many he'd used. But as the sacred light grew in power, more and more black mist was forced out of the demonic blood. Finally, with a roar of rage, a roar that seemed to include the words, "Damn you, true martial brat," the single drop of demonic blood was split in two. The light receded, and the altar returned to a state of calm. The two split blood drops floated in midair. The left drop glowed with a pure aura, imbued with the primordial might of a god beast. It radiated a noble, primal power. The right drop, though also crimson, exuded a sinister aura, as if it contained every sin and evil in existence. Su Zimo collected both drops into his nebula bottle. He understood that the altar had purged the demonic blood. The left drop was now pure god beast essence. The right drop contained the resentment and hatred that had accumulated over centuries, born from its mutation and the beast's wrath in death. The altar was colossal in scale. Su Zimo and Ren Pingshang quickly hid deep within it. Each took a true essence concealment pill, a powerful elixir given to Su Zimo long ago by his father Su Qingshan to ensure his safety. With the pill's effects, even an Empyrean Meridian cultivator would be unable to detect them. Ren didn't know Su Zimo's ultimate plan, but he trusted that whatever needed explaining would be revealed in time. They stayed hidden inside the altar for 3 full days. On the morning of the 4th day, Ren was startled from meditation by a loud commotion outside. Peeking out, he saw an immense crowd approaching from the distance. By a rough estimate, there were at least 10,000 people, all wearing identical uniforms. Many bore beast-like features on their bodies, clearly disciples of the Myriad Beast sect. Leading them was a muscular man in black robes. He was so powerfully built that his arms looked thicker than Ren's thighs. His face had visible tiger whiskers, and on his forehead was a faint imprint of the character Wang, King. As he approached, an overwhelming pressure spread outward, like a primordial beast had descended. Behind him were 4 more black-robed elders, their aged faces barely visible beneath their wide robes. The auras of these 5 individuals were so powerful that the surrounding space itself seemed to tremble. It was obvious all 5 were Empyrean Meridian realm cultivators. Nearly the entire upper echelon of the Myriad Beast sect had arrived. "See that man in front, in the black robe?" Su Zimo whispered to Ren. "That's Li Yunhu, the current sect master of the Myriad Beast sect." As the army of disciples arrived, they formed up in a grand procession, all raising their heads solemnly to look at the towering pure moon altar. They began arranging an incense altar, as if preparing for a sacred ritual. As the purple incense smoke rose into the air, the 10,000 disciples knelt in unison, bowing 3 times toward the altar. Inside the altar, Su Zimo and Ren could only watch as thousands of people, along with multiple Empyrean Meridian and countless Imperial Meridian experts, prostrated before them. Ren smacked his lips and muttered, "I don't think I can handle this many people kneeling to me, but I gotta say, it feels pretty damn good." Once the ritual ended, one of the Empyrean Meridian elders stood at the side to guard the altar. Meanwhile, the others, led by Sect Master Li Yunhu, entered the massive blood pool beside the altar. Then, the guarding elder raised his hand, his aura tearing the air apart. A roaring sound echoed, and a massive river came flowing down from the distant sky. Its waters were enveloped in white mist, rich in spirit force. The life force swirled around it as it surged forth under the Empyrean Meridian Elder's command, pouring into the pure moon altar. Ren squinted and realized this wasn't water. It was liquid spirit force. For a rogue cultivator like him, even a small vial of this stuff was incredibly precious. But these bastards just summoned a whole river's worth like it was nothing. Damn it, Ren thought. One day I'll set a small goal for myself. Let's say, earn 1 billion tons of liquid spirit force first. As the river poured in, the altar burst into radiant light, its power surpassing anything Su Zimo had achieved earlier. At the same time, Li Yunhu led his elders and disciples into the blood pool. To Ren's shock, they tore off their own flesh with their bare hands. The pain of doing so was unimaginable. Those who couldn't endure it might even die from the agony. Once stripped of their flesh, their blood was exposed, and it was black, radiating a terrifying evil aura. They were purging every last drop of corrupted blood from their bodies. It was a horrifying sight. Hundreds of fleshless bodies, skeletons drenched in black blood. As they hovered their tainted blood into the air, the pure moon altar shone again with divine light. A beam of white light illuminated the thousands-mile-wide blood pool, and the blood within began to boil and roll. Their dark blood floated upward into the light, slowly being cleansed and purified. Chapter 130, Creating Big Trouble. Everyone began absorbing the clean blood from the sea of blood. This process required extreme caution. Any mistake could lead to incurable dark afflictions at best, or instant death at worst. A powerful elder in the Empyrean Meridian realm stood guard nearby, radiating a mighty aura. Inside the divine altar, Su Zimo whispered to Ren Pingsheng. In a moment, use the sun-devouring axe to attack the pure moon altar with full force. Interrupt its purifying light. Leave the rest to me. Ren Pingsheng nodded. He knew Su Zimo was about to do something big. Remember, give it everything you've got. You only have one shot, Su Zimo warned. Ordinary attacks are useless against the altar. As everyone was bathed in holy light and began the blood replacement process, Ren Pingsheng took a deep breath and pulled out the sun-devouring axe. Black mist surged around him as he awakened the spirit of the Grand Emperor True Treasure once again. The power of Grand Emperor runes and remnants of heavens will fused into him. The space around him shattered under the sheer force. Black mist howled from the giant axe. His expression twisted as he shot out from the altar and brought the axe down with all his might. Time seemed to freeze. Ren Pingsheng had never felt so seen in his life. Since the day he was born, the Ren clan had long since declined. Being a descendant of an emperor brought no glory, only responsibility. But today he would raise the giant axe. He would strike in the heart of a supreme sect. He would shine under the stunned gaze of nearly 10,000 onlookers, Imperial Meridian or Empyrean Meridian, it didn't matter. He would burn as bright as the blazing sun. He would bring down that axe. As the axe sliced through the air, the heavens roared, the sky cried out, and snarling faces writhed in the black mist. Everyone heard a thunderous explosion that shook the heavens. The axe struck the pure moon altar. Though it left no visible mark, the altar's purifying light was severed. The moment the axe struck, a nearby Empyrean Meridian elder spotted him. "You little brat, how dare you!" the elder roared, spirit force surging in the sky as a giant hand smacked toward Ren Pingsheng. The massive hand crushed everything in its path. Space collapsed around it. But Ren Pingsheng, cloaked in pitch-black demonic energy, held the sun-devouring axe and felt no fear. He swung the axe at the incoming hand, as if ready to battle heaven and earth. But the power of an Empyrean Meridian expert was overwhelming. With a single palm, Ren Pingsheng was sent flying, coughing up blood. Seeing him try to rise and attack the altar again, the elder snorted coldly and flew into the air. With a wave of both hands, he bound Ren Pingsheng with chains of restriction. Meanwhile, in the blood pool, everyone had reached the critical point of their blood replacement. Su Zimo flew out from inside the altar and dropped a single drop of blood into the pool. This drop had been extracted from the blood of the nine-headed god beast, pure, unfiltered evil. It carried the resentment of all god beasts. It was pure corruption. Without the altar's purifying light, this drop of corrupted blood instantly dissolved into the blood sea. Su Zimo had specifically asked Ren Pingsheng to disrupt the altar's light to pollute the blood pool. Otherwise, the purification would have neutralized the evil blood. All the disciples were fully focused on the blood transfer, paying no attention to the outside world. As the tainted blood merged with the pool and entered the bodies of nearly 10,000 disciples, screams began to ring out. Some of the weaker cultivators were already in agony. Even though the evil blood had been diluted, the disciples of the Myriad Beasts sect had such unique physiques that even the smallest trace of corruption wreaked havoc in their bodies. Soon, the screaming spread throughout the pool. Even some of the Empyrean Meridian elders and the sect master Li Yun, who turned pale with dark energy swirling around them, they were barely hanging on. The elder who had just captured Ren Pingsheng noticed something was wrong. He roared furiously and charged straight at Su Zimo, his aura threatening to tear him apart. Su Zimo quickly crushed the jade talisman his father had given him. Spirit force churned like clouds across the sky, and a green shadow appeared in front of Su Zimo. Surrounded by thousands of sword auras, the green-robed figure radiated calm indifference. With a simple gesture, all the sword energy shot toward the incoming elder. Though the elder smashed many sword beams, more kept coming. One even grazed his hand, drawing blood. He stared at the green figure. He knew this was merely a soul projection. But for a soul at only half a step into the Empyrean Meridian realm to battle him to a standstill, how terrifying must the real body be? This soul projection came from Su Qingshan and was controlled entirely by Su Zimo. More and more disciples in the Blood Sea began screaming in pain. The elder grew desperate. He had to suppress Su Zimo and Rinpingsheng fast and restart the pure moon altar. Run! Su Zimo shouted to Rinpingsheng, while the soul projection stalled the elder. Rinpingsheng inhaled deeply. Black demonic shadows swirled around him as he shattered the bindings with a swing of his axe, then bolted from the pure moon domain. Nothing beats the feeling of showing off and then fleeing, Rinpingsheng thought to himself. Su Zimo and Rinpingsheng both escaped through the air, leaving the pure moon god domain and myriad beast city behind. The elder, blocked by the soul projection, had no choice but to summon his true life force. A phantom of the ancient azure dragon loomed over him, radiating primal beastly pressure. He charged in, and after a prolonged battle, finally destroyed the soul projection and rushed to restart the altar. Su Zimo and Rinpingsheng left the pure moon god domain and the myriad beast sect far behind. No one could have guessed that the famous myriad beast sect in the far west was now on the brink of collapse. Su Zimo knew he had made a permanent enemy of them. But given the sect's current situation, it was uncertain whether they could even hold onto their status as a top-tier sect, let alone come after him. He and Rinpingsheng didn't stop, heading straight for the true martial sacred ground. The Seven Holy Lands gathering was approaching. But at this rate, who knew if the Myriad Beast sect would even be able to show up? Chapter 131 Seven Holy Lands Gathering. Legend has it that long ago, there was a Taoist named Qin Yangzi. He firmly believed that animals had existed far earlier than humans. In his view, humans had simply evolved from a certain type of animal. Aside from differences in thinking and intelligence, humans were essentially just a higher species of animal. After the dawn of the cultivation era, humans developed martial cultivation, and beasts became infernal beasts. The biggest difference between human martial artists and infernal beasts was that humans cultivated much faster, more than twice as fast, in fact. Infernal beasts, on the other hand, were born with powerful bodies. A martial artist at the same realm would struggle to even break their defenses. As a result, martial artists were usually no match for infernal beasts at equal levels. But because their bodies were so strong, infernal beasts needed enormous amounts of blood essence to advance, which made their cultivation painfully slow. They often killed each other as well. Devouring the flesh and blood of their kind was a shortcut to replenishing blood essence. Qin Yangzi had long pondered whether it was possible to merge the bloodlines of humans and infernal beasts. The goal: allow humans to retain their superior cultivation speed while gaining the infernal beasts' formidable physiques. Grand Emperor Bao, the first infernal beast in history to bear the heaven's will, had a lasting impact on beast folk, just as Grand Emperor Jinwu had on humankind. Before his ascension, Grand Emperor Bao passed down his emperor-level cultivation technique, the strength scripture, to many infernal beasts, hoping that more talents would emerge among them. Several eras later, a giant python transformed into a true dragon and became the bearer of the heaven's will. Because this dragon had started cultivating with the strength scripture, in honor of Grand Emperor Bao's legacy and selflessness, it crowned itself with the imperial title of Grand Emperor Li. During Grand Emperor Li's era, Qin Yangzi sought him out and shared his idea. He wanted to create a perfect hybrid species. Grand Emperor Li agreed. After centuries of joint effort, they succeeded in creating a brand new species, Beastmen. Their experiment was both a success and a failure. Beastmen didn't cultivate as quickly as humans, but they were stronger physically than most martial artists. Though they couldn't match infernal beasts in raw power, their cultivation speed far outpaced them. In short, Beastmen combined the strengths of both humans and infernal beasts, and also inherited their weaknesses. But their existence was tragic. Carrying traits of both humans and beasts, they were accepted by neither. Worse still, because their bloodlines weren't pure, their internal energies clashed. When the conflict became too great, their bloodlines would collapse, eventually killing them. Grand Emperor Li blamed himself. He scoured the world for a solution to save the Beastmen. He eventually discovered the pure moon altar. If Beastmen replaced their blood every 3 months and stayed under the altar's purifying light, their lifespan could be significantly extended. But as the saying goes, the pitiful often have their hateful sides. In that era, the Beastmen, emboldened by Grand Emperor Li's guilt, became arrogant and tyrannical. They looked down on both humans and infernal beasts. After Grand Emperor Li's ascension, punishment followed swiftly. The Beastmen of that time were hunted like vermin, on the brink of extinction. Only a few survived by hiding and struggling on. After countless eras, their numbers gradually grew again. These new Beastmen formed a sect around the Pure Moon altar. They called it the Myriad Beast Sect. As time passed, the grudges and misunderstandings faded. Su Zimo and Renpingxing finally returned to the true martial sacred ground after a long journey. The sect was unusually lively these days. Disciples everywhere were talking about the upcoming Seven Holy Lands gathering and the geniuses from each sect. The tournament was the most anticipated and grandest event in the Western region. Held once every 3 years, the only rule for participants was that they had to be under 30 years old. Each sect could send up to 10 disciples. It was said that after the 7 great sects stabilized the region long ago, they agreed to host this tournament every 3 years. The tradition was ancient. This year, it was true martial sacred grounds' turn to host. Invitations had already been sent to the other 6 sects half a month ago. At this moment, the atmosphere inside the sect's grand hall was heavy. The third Grand Elder spoke. "Sect Master, the Myriad Beasts sect sent word. They're closing their gates for the foreseeable future and won't be participating in any external affairs. Looks like they won't be coming to the tournament either." "What happened?" Su Qingshan frowned slightly. "Didn't they already accept the invitation before?" "We're still investigating," the third Grand Elder replied. "There's no solid evidence, but I suspect it's related to their bloodline issues." "You're in charge of this tournament," Su Qingshan said calmly. "I don't want any unexpected problems. If they're not coming, then notify the entire Western region. It'll now be a 6 Holy Lands gathering." "How should we select our disciples for the competition?" the third Grand Elder asked. "Most of our core disciples are already over 30. They can't participate. If there are no objections, I'll choose from the inner court based on the Hidden Dragon ranking." "Huir is still under 30, the 5th Grand Elder interjected. "He just never bothered with rankings, which is why he's not on the list. But his strength absolutely qualifies him for the tournament. You should consider him." As the 5th Grand Elder finished, the 6th Grand Elder, Xiao Ruoxuan, added, "Xiao may not be on the ranking either, but she's fully inherited the Grand Empress's legacy. She must have a spot. How am I supposed to choose if you all keep pushing your people?" The 3rd Grand Elder looked helplessly at Su Qingshan. "Vice Lord, how about we hold an internal trial within the sect and let the top finishers represent us?" "No need for that," Su Qingshan replied. "I know what Xia Hui and Bailey Xiao are capable of. Add them to the list. As for the rest, select based on the Hidden Dragon ranking. Announce that in 3 days we'll finalize the participants based on the ranking. Let those who've been hiding their strength give it their all and fight for their place." Chapter 132, The Gathering. "I understand," the 3rd Grand Elder nodded in response. Also, Su Qingshan added calmly, "I'm well aware of my son Zimo's strength. Save a spot for him as well." The 3rd Grand Elder paused for a moment, but nodded in agreement. The other Grand Elders didn't voice any objections either. Most of their personal disciples were already over 30, many of whom had participated in the previous tournament. Only the 1st Grand Elder looked displeased. He had originally wanted to recommend his grandson, but considering Xiao Xingyu's recent state, he knew it was unlikely. His grandson had clearly missed the chance to become a holy son. The day after Su Zimo returned to South Goose Mountain, the 3rd Grand Elder came to see him. He personally tested Su Zimo's strength. Upon discovering that Su Zimo had already reached the peak of the Desolate Meridian Realm, the 3rd Grand Elder was practically stunned. Although Bailey Xiao had advanced rapidly as well, she had inherited the Grand Empress legacy, her growth was expected. But Su Zimo had always kept a low profile in the sect, and yet somehow he'd reached such a high level in secret. The Grand Elder wasn't sure if it was due to the Vice Lord's influence or if Su Zimo's talent was simply monstrous. Either way, Su Zimo now qualified for the upcoming tournament. After the third Grand Elder left, Yen Buhui came to South Goose Mountain to visit Su Zimo. He looked far more mature than before. His sword aura was restrained, and his white robes gleamed like snow. Gone was the brash edge from their first meeting. "You've changed a lot," Su Zimo said with a smile. "I inherited the legacy of the sword god." Yen Buhui replied frankly, not hiding anything. Su Zimo chuckled, drew his blade Shadow Tyrant, and struck. The surging waters of a flood surged with blade aura, splitting the ground before them like a great chasm. Yen Buhui quickly drew his sword to block. Though he had seemed calm earlier, the moment his sword was unsheathed, a sharp light burst forth, blindingly white and filled with killing intent. When sword met blade, Yen Buhui's expression changed. He grunted and staggered back a few steps, while Su Zimo stood calmly, unmoved. Su Zimo laughed softly, sheathed Shadow Tyrant, and turned to leave the courtyard. "Work hard to catch up to my shadow, otherwise, you won't even have the right to look up to me." Over the next few days, the Hidden Dragon ranking in the inner court underwent massive changes. Competition was fierce. Many long-standing inner disciples were knocked out of the top 10, replaced by previously unknown dark horses rising to the top. 3 days later, the true Martial Sacred Ground finalized the list of disciples who would participate in the 7 Holy Lands gathering. A few mornings later, purple energy rose in the east. A gentle breeze carried yellowing leaves across the sky above the true Martial Sacred Ground. Willow trees on either side of the sect swayed in the wind. Autumn had stripped them bare, their lonely branches mourning the lushness of the past. Suddenly, a sharp cry shattered the peace. From the east, it looked like the sun itself was falling from the sky. Boundless flames engulfed the heavens, crimson like a sunset curtain descending across the sky. But upon closer inspection, it wasn't the sun. It was a golden crow, shining even brighter than the sun itself. Radiating dazzling golden light, a group of young men in golden robes stood proudly atop the golden crow's back. Their eyes were bright, their expressions calm with a hint of excitement. Bathed in golden light, they looked like warriors clad in celestial armor. At the same time, another shrill cry rang out from the west. A pure white-blue Luan bird flapped its wings slowly as it flew over. It radiated a sacred glow, and with every beat of its wings, a few feathers floated gently down. On its back stood a group of young women dressed in white robes, their skin fairer than snow. Their long hair fluttered in the wind. Each radiated an ethereal presence, like goddesses descending from the heavens. "Look, it's the girls from the Fairy Spirit sect," a disciple shouted in surprise. The Fairy Spirit sect was famous for producing beautiful women, a dream sect for many male cultivators. Unfortunately, it didn't admit any men. A demonic sword sliced through the silence of the sky, its sonic boom echoing across the heavens. From the south, dark demonic energy surged, covering the sky in black. The massive demonic sword stretched 100 meters long. A group of black-robed youths walked along the blade, their gazes calm. An aura of endless killing intent radiated from them. The longer one looked, the more it felt like falling into a hellish sea of blood. Emblazoned on the back of their robes was the character Hell. They were from the Purgatory Sacred Ground, second only to the true Martial Sacred Ground in the western region. An imperial lineage with 2 grand emperors. Under the darkened sky, the soft sound of flowing water suddenly rose. A waterfall descended from the heavens, cascading down in radiant light. Water, though formless and colorless, danced through the void, at times transforming into an ancient divine tree, then a towering titan, then a primeval beast. Eventually, the waterfall returned to its original form, and atop it stood a group of blue-robed youths. On the back of their robes was embroidered the character Spring. They were from the Sacred Spring sect. "Now it's just the Yin Yang sect left," a disciple murmured. As if on cue, A resonant hum swept across the world, like some ancient force had awakened. A black and white pair of light dots appeared in the very center of heaven and earth, entwining in a spiral. In an instant, laws flowed and light surged. The sky split into halves, one black, one white. The poles of yin and yang stretched across the heavens. In this moment, it was as if cosmic laws reverberated, as if day and night had reversed. A river of time surged from nothingness, then morphed into a sea of fire. Atop the two glowing points stood youths in black and white robes, each bearing the yin-yang emblem on their backs. Leading them was none other than the current sect master of the yin-yang sect, Wu Shaoqing. As everyone stood stunned by the overwhelming entrances of the six great sects, a loud, hearty laugh echoed from within the true martial sacred ground. "Welcome, everyone, to our sacred ground," came the booming voice. With that, Su Qingshan stepped out of the void, every step shaking the heavens and earth. Chapter 133 Chu Yang, Holy Son of Yin-Yang Sect. Su Qingshan walked through the air, each step altering heaven and earth. With his first step, the once surging river conjured by the sacred spring sect came to an abrupt halt, as if time and space themselves were frozen. With his second step, both the golden crow and the blue luan let out low cries, visibly trembling in fear, their proud heads lowered. With his third step, the long sword that had sliced through the silence began to tremble, and even the surging demonic aura receded in submission. With his fourth step, the division of heaven and earth into yin and yang appeared insignificant, like ants that could be wiped out with the flick of a finger. He didn't need to seek the center of this world. Wherever he stood, whatever he did, he was the center of this world. As Su Qingshan approached step by step, it seemed as though the golden crow, the blue luan, the demonic sword, the flowing river, and even the yin-yang division of the heavens all became mere backdrops to him. In everyone's eyes, there was only one figure, the man in green, as if bearing the heavens on his shoulders and the earth beneath his feet, holding up the entire sky. "Brother Qingshan, it's been too long since we last met," the sacred spring sect's master, Luo Changhe, greeted with a hearty laugh. "Brother Changhe, indeed, it has," Su Qingshan smiled, exchanging greetings with the other sect masters in the crowd. Then, leading the four supreme sects, he flew into the true martial sacred ground. At this time, the sect was bustling with activity. Besides the supreme sects of the western region, the seven Holy Lands gathering also drew second and third-tier sects, along with royal representatives from the Violet Sun Empire and the Azurewood Empire, all invited as spectators. Su Qingshan personally welcomed the major sects, while the elders of true martial sacred ground handled the rest. The grand tournament was scheduled for the following morning, and all guests were housed on Hero Peak within the sect. No matter how lively the outside world was, South Goose Mountain, where Su Zimo resided, remained calm and quiet. He lounged on a chair in his courtyard, the gentle autumn breeze carrying the withered scent of falling leaves from the peak's summit, brushing lightly across his face. At that moment, little Gue entered from outside and said, "Senior brother, I've gathered intel on the other major sections. They've confirmed the Myriad Beast sect won't attend?" Su Zimo opened his eyes slightly. "They're not on the list for this tournament," little Gue replied. "This time, all the attention is on the holy sons and daughters of the various sections." "Who are they? Give me the rundown," Su Zimo asked, sitting up and getting more comfortable. "From the Divine Sun's sacred ground, their holy son is Shenyuan Shantian. For the Purgatory sacred ground, it's Heavenly Demon Child. The Sacred Spring sect hasn't finalized theirs, but there's a monstrous body-refining genius with a lot of support. As for the Fairy Spirit sect, after Nya Xingxing died, they named a new holy daughter, Fairy Linger. But the most interesting one is from the Yin-Yang sect. They only recently named a holy son, Chu Yang. No one knows his true strength, but you probably remember, just a while ago, the Fairy Spirit sect was hunting a boy named Chu Yang. That incident has made things tense between the Yin-Yang and Fairy Spirit sections. Then who's leading in terms of hype within our own true martial sacred ground? Su Zimo asked. It's Bailey Xiao, 6th Grand Elder's niece, little Gue answered. Being the Grand Empress's inheritor gives her a big reputation. But honestly, these disciples are all frogs in a well. Once you make your move, senior brother, they'll realize all these so-called geniuses are nothing but glorified trash. All right, cut the flattery. Su Zimo waved him off with a smile. After little Gue left, Su Zimo pulled several letters from his sleeve, intelligence gathered by Situ Yunqing from various sources. He slowly opened the first letter. A month ago, a massive burst of white light erupted from a mountain near the Fairy Spirit sect. That mountain once belonged to the revered ancestor, Peacock Patriarch. Rumors say a powerful artifact may have emerged, but the matter was quickly suppressed by the sect. Shortly afterward, they named an unknown woman, Fairy Linger, as the new holy daughter. Another letter read, half a month ago, the Yinyang sect activated their sacred treasure, the Yinyang diagram, purpose unknown. Days later, they named a young man called Chu Yang as their holy son. The last letter stated, in the depths of the myriad mountains, someone spotted a giant striding across the land. Purpose unknown. Strength unknown. After reading them, Su Zimo summoned a blazing flame in his right hand and calmly burned the letters to ashes. He closed his eyes and reclined once more on the chair. Softly, he muttered to himself, Chu Yang, Yinyang sect, it's been a long time. Within the true martial sacred ground, there existed a special, independent space known as the Heavenly Domain. Created during the era of Grand Empress Hongtian, it had existed for tens of thousands of years. The Heavenly Domain was specially designed by the sect to host large-scale tournaments. It was a self-contained space spanning tens of thousands of square meters, so vast that its boundaries were invisible to the naked eye. At its center stood nearly 100 arenas forged from true, profound iron, each close to 100 meters wide and surrounded by chains for stability. These arenas were sturdy enough to withstand several attacks even from an Imperial Meridian Realm cultivator. As the sun rose, an autumn wind stirred yellow leaves through the air. Morning light gently fell from the sky, ushering in a new day. Once all the sects had gathered, the major sects followed behind the true martial sacred ground, with the second and third-tier sects bringing up the rear. The massive procession entered the Heavenly Domain like a long, winding dragon. It took nearly half an hour for everyone to get in. There were over 100 second-tier sects in attendance just as spectators. By now, rows upon rows of seats had been set up around the dozens of arenas. These were reserved for high-ranking sect members and elite disciples. Ordinary disciples had to stand at the back to watch. As the chief organizer of the tournament, the third Grand Elder stepped onto the central platform in a crimson robe, his aura surging. First, let me thank everyone for coming to witness this 7 Holy Lands gathering hosted by our true martial sacred ground, he announced loudly from the stage. The Myriad Beast sect has withdrawn from this tournament due to special circumstances. Since the era of the Grand Emperor Xinxing, the 7 Holy Lands gathering has been held every 3 years. It's a tradition that's lasted for thousands of years. Its purpose is to strengthen ties between sects, allow young disciples to meet and learn from other prodigies, expand their horizons, and recognize their own weaknesses. I won't waste time with more words. Let me briefly explain the rules for this tournament. Chapter 134. I want to slice him to 1,000 pieces. This gathering will feature 60 disciples from various sects. The third Grand Elder began, his voice calm and authoritative. Opponents will be chosen by drawing lots. Each battle is 1 round, 1 winner. The format is 60 down to 30, then 30 down to 15. Once 15 remain, 1 contestant will get a bye through a random draw, while the remaining 14 fight. Who gets the bye? That's up to luck. From 15 to 8, the battles continue. Among the final 8, we'll use a time-based advantage. The disciple who finishes their match the quickest will get to choose their next opponent. Understood. Understood, shouted the disciples from the various sects, lined up in 6 teams, their voices loud and full of energy. Today, you stand before most of the major powers of the entire Western region. If you make a name for yourself here, you'll make a name for yourself throughout the region, the third Grand Elder declared, his gaze sweeping across the crowd of young warriors. His voice, laced with spiritual energy, thundered in their ears. Show everything you've got, what you've trained for over the past 10 or more years. Today, before your sect masters, under the eyes of thousands, make them all remember your name. His rousing speech left the disciples flushed with excitement. Their blood surged, their chests puffed up with confidence. Each had only one thought in their mind: become famous. Youth sure is something, Susimo said, glancing at the fired-up disciples nearby. Just a couple of words and they're already ready to die on stage. The arena's set. Now it's time for the actors to take the stage, heroes, villains, and clowns alike. Next to him, Bailey Xiao, dressed in white, stood at the front of the true martial Sacred Grounds team. Her gaze never left the young man standing directly across from them, Chu Yang, of the Yin Yang sect. Chu Yang wore the signature black and white robe of his sect. His eyes met Bailey Xiao's with equal intensity. Across the distance, their eyes locked. Tears shimmered in Bailey Xiao's eyes as she murmured, "Chu Yang." She hadn't expected that the ordinary boy from that tiny mountain village could go through so much suffering, rise without resources or connections, and become the holy son of the Yin Yang sect. Bailey Xiao was proud of Chu Yang and proud of herself for believing in him. "How touching," Susimo said with a smirk as he observed her. "Tell me, if I crushed his head like a watermelon, would you be heartbroken? You dare kill someone in the 7 Holy Lands gathering?" Bailey Xiao turned to him, expression cold. "Accidents happen all the time," Susimo replied with a grin. "Of course, if you cry and beg me now, I'll make sure his death is at least a little prettier." "You should worry about yourself," she said with a sneer. "Let's see if you can even make it past the first round." "No need to worry about me," Susimo grinned wickedly. "I'll make sure you get a front row seat while I slice him into 1,000 pieces." Bailey Xiao frowned and snorted coldly, refusing to engage further. When the tournament officially began, a thunderous roar erupted from the audience. Since it was true martial Sacred Grounds' home turf, their cheers easily drowned out those of the other sects. The crowd's shouts rolled like waves, vibrating through the very air. Among the cheers, Bailey Xiao's name came up the most. She was beautiful, immensely talented, and heir to the legacy of the Grand Empress. To many disciples, she was a dream made real. Amid the noise, Su Zimo also faintly heard some cheering for himself. "Su Yimo, I want to bear your children." His expression darkened. If it had been a girl, maybe he'd let it slide. But the voice was deep and gruff. Some guy had yelled that out. The lot drawing began. There were 30 numbers divided into pairs. Disciples who drew matching numbers would face each other. Su Zimo looked at his draw. Number 7. Once the groups were set, he stepped onto Arena 7. His opponent wore a black robe, clearly a disciple from the Purgatory Sacred Ground. The disciple looked at Su Zimo and chuckled. "The son of true martial Sacred Grounds Vice Lord. If I eliminate you in the first round, I'll be famous overnight." The moment he finished speaking, clang! The sound of a blade being drawn echoed through the arena. He didn't even see the blade move, but suddenly felt a sharp sting at his neck. His eyes widened. He touched his neck and saw a thin cut, the skin lightly sliced. "You're lucky," Su Zimo said with a smile. "I didn't miss." "What were you saying just now? I didn't quite catch it." "Ha ha, ha!" The disciple gave a nervous laugh. "The wind sure is loud today." Shaken to the core, he quickly stepped down from the arena, heart pounding. He just had a brush with death. Up in the VIP seats, Yen Hong, Sacred Lord of the Purgatory Sacred Ground, smiled and said, "Vice Lord Su, your son is impressive. 1 slash was all it took to settle the match." "It's just one fight, it doesn't mean much," Su Qingshan replied with a calm smile. After stepping off the arena, Su Zimo watched the other matches. Since the winner with the shortest match time would get to choose their next opponent in the top 8, Many disciples were trying to end their fights as fast as possible. Chu Yang, wielding the wandering dragon sword, made his move. With a single slash, primordial yin-yang energy surged. These weren't just opposites, they were primal, ever-shifting forces. As they exploded in front of his opponent, the poor disciple was blown off the stage instantly. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. Yin-yang energy not acquired, but innate. True innate yin and yang. This was one of the core materials required to build a personal world. Su Zimo now felt that he and Chu Yang were truly destined rivals. Love and hate intertwined. I was going to kill him anyway, but now he's bringing me such a big surprise right before death. Originally, Su Zimo had been looking for the legendary Oblivion Bead, hoping to extract its innate yin-yang energy to construct his own world. But now, it seemed even though he'd taken Chu Yang's world pearl in a previous life, Chu Yang's luck had led him to the Oblivion Bead regardless. Such a treasure trove, Su Zimo muttered. Makes me almost want to raise him in a cage instead of kill him. Still, the longer you wait, the greater the risk. He didn't want the prey to become the hunter. With the end of the first round, 30 disciples were eliminated. The remaining 30 drew lots again. Su Zimo drew number 12. He stepped onto the arena to see a young man in golden robes, holding a sword at his waist, already waiting for him. Isn't that Lin Yifei of Cloud Sky Sword Sect? A disciple exclaimed from the stands in surprise. Chapter 135 Cloud Sky Sword. Who's Lin Yifei? A disciple asked, staring at the golden-robed youth with a sword in his arms. A long time ago, he was the most talented disciple of the Divine Sun's sacred ground. Someone beside him explained. Back then, he was considered the most likely candidate to become their holy son. But then Shenyuan Shentian appeared and swept through the younger generation of the Divine Sun's sacred ground. Lin Yifei was defeated just like the rest. After that, Lin Yifei devoted himself to training in seclusion, and not many remember him anymore. Shenyuan Xuantian's brilliance was just too overwhelming. On the arena platform, Lin Yifei slowly drew his Cloud Sky Sword. A powerful sword aura surged around him, his robes fluttering despite no wind. He began to speak slowly. My sword is an invincible sword. With each word he spoke, the force of his sword aura grew even stronger. Lin Yifei's aura paused for a second. He glanced at Su Zimo, then continued. The edge of my sword is sharp and unyielding. It breaks rather than bends. It fears nothing and never surrenders. I heard you lost to Shenyuan Shentian?
Su Zimo repeat.
Though my sword may be blocked, I believe in it. With this sword in my hand, I will carve a path through all obstacles, walk forward fearlessly, and reach the ultimate path of the sword, to become a sword god. Die, you piece of shit! Lin Yifei roared, veins bulging on his forehead, and charged at Su Zimo in fury. Su Zimo shook his head and sighed. Such loud slogans. But your mind is scattered. And so is your sword. He drew Shadow Tyrant, and with one slash, the river split, thunder rolled, divine might descended, and blazing flames clashed with the roaring torrents of water. Gales howled through the storm of power. With just one strike, Lin Yifei's expression changed dramatically. His Cloud Sky Sword was flung from his grip, and he himself was thrown to the edge of the arena. Stunned, Lin Yifei looked around in disbelief. He couldn't accept it, he hadn't even survived a single move. Is this what you call swordsmanship? Came a disappointed voice nearby. Lin Yifei turned his head and saw Tsongsong Lin, sect master of the Divine Sun sacred ground, standing on the side. You still haven't gotten over the nightmare that is Shenyuan Shentian? Tsongsong Lin sighed and turned to leave. Lin Yifei stood there in silence for a long moment, then quietly picked up his fallen Cloud Sky Sword and left the arena, his figure heavy with defeat. He had forgotten so much. Why did he start learning the sword in the first place? What did the sword path mean to him? All he remembered was that he had once been the brightest talent in his sect, the closest contender for the Holy Sun title. Until one day, a youth named Shenyuan Shentian appeared out of nowhere and shattered all his dreams. Since then, he had never reclaimed his former glory. Is Senior Brother Su really that strong? Even Cloud Sky Sword got defeated so easily, a disciple said in disbelief. He's deep and unreadable, another muttered. But it feels like Lin Yifei wasn't quite himself today. After stepping down from the arena, Su Zimo noticed that all the matches involving holy sons or daughters were one-sided. The real fights were happening between the non-elite disciples, where battles were fierce and evenly matched. When the 30 became 15, a new round of lot drawing began. Su Zimo looked at his draw and paused. He had drawn number 8, the Bai. He glanced over at the third Grand Elder, who looked calm and indifferent, as if none of this had anything to do with him. Su Zimo didn't believe there hadn't been any manipulation. After all, what if 2 Sacred Grounds holy sons ended up fighting in the first round? That would ruin the show. The real drama was meant for later. Since he had drawn a Bai, Su Zimo could only stand on the sidelines and watch the others fight. What caught his interest was Fairy Linger of the Fairy Spirit sect. She wore pure white robes and wielded a soft, pale green sword. She didn't use any special techniques, just a few basic sword forms. But in her hands, they looked like they'd been honed over centuries. Each move flowed naturally, gracefully. Her sword shadows wove an impenetrable net over the arena, and her opponent was swiftly forced off the stage. As the round narrowed from 15 to 8, several competitors had already advanced: Su Zimo, Fairy Linger, Bai Li Xiao, Chu Yang, Heavenly Demon Child, and Shenyuan Shintian. Only 2 arenas remained in battle. One match was rather unremarkable with 2 fairly average disciples. But the other match drew everyone's attention. 2 youths stood on the platform, identical twins. One was Jiang Yu, the other Jiang Heng, the 2 strongest disciples of the Sacred Spring sect. It was widely believed that the next holy son of the sect would be chosen from between them. Now the crowd was eager. A battle between brothers always piqued interest. I really thought both Jiang brothers would make the top 8, a Sacred Spring sect disciple sighed. It's a shame, but I'm rooting for Senior Brother Jiang Yu, another replied. True, they've competed for over a decade, and Jiang Yu has always been stronger. Their conversation caught the attention of disciples from other sects, who asked for more details. Their story is dramatic, someone explained. Jiang Yu is the older brother, Jiang Heng the younger. When they were young, they accidentally saved a severely injured expert. Unfortunately, their healing pills were too weak to help, and the expert was beyond saving. Before he died, he offered to pass on his martial arts to them. He told them he had mastered 2 ultimate paths, one of extreme offense and one of unbreakable defense. He asked which each wanted to learn. Jiang Yu chose defense.
Zhang Yang chose offense.
It's a bit like the classic spear and shield paradox. The spear pierces everything, the shield blocks all. So someone asked, what happens when your spear hits your shield? This very question played out between the brothers. They had been locked in rivalry ever since, each trying to prove that their chosen path was superior. But after over a decade of competition, Jiang Heng's offense had never broken through Jiang Yu's defense. He'd always been on the losing end. Though the twins looked alike, their builds were quite different. Jiang Heng was lean and wiry. Jiang Yu was muscular and imposing, with a physique that left a strong visual impression. Brother, you should surrender, Jiang Heng said, raising his fists. Golden spirit force surged around them, forming shockwaves that fractured the space around them. My foolish little brother, Jiang Yu said with a laugh. You should be the one to give up. After all, you've never beaten me, not even once, in all these years. Chapter 136 Lost Godwind. Then try me and see. Jiang Heng snorted, energy surging around his fists. A gust of wind blew at his feet. White spirit force wrapped around his entire body as he charged straight at Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu chuckled softly and didn't dodge at all, allowing the punch to land squarely on his abdomen. My foolish little brother. After all these years, your attacks still haven't improved, he said casually. Even after taking the punch directly, his body didn't budge in the slightest. It was as if he felt nothing at all. Jiang Heng's eyes narrowed as he let out a low growl and followed up with several more punches in rapid succession. I'm sorry, but I'm taking the spot this time, Jiang Yu said. Then he raised both palms and struck toward Jiang Heng. Jiang Heng snorted coldly and quickly retreated. Before Jiang Yu's palms could connect, Jiang Heng had already moved to the side. Your speed's improved a lot. Jiang Yu narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a calm tone. You noticed. Jiang Heng sneered, then charged in close again, his body leaving behind multiple afterimages in the air. After exchanging a few moves, Jiang Yu's expression shifted. Jiang Heng's speed was far superior to his own, and he couldn't even touch the edge of his opponent's robe. Though his defense was formidable, Jiang Heng kept striking the same spot on his abdomen. At first, it didn't hurt, but after taking repeated hits in the same place, Jiang Yu began to feel the pain build. You abandoned your extreme path, Jiang Yu roared. The two of them had been rivals since youth. Jiang Heng had been obsessed with the path of attack, while he had committed to the path of defense. Neither had trained specifically in speed or other areas before. That doesn't matter, as long as I can beat you, Jiang Heng shouted back. Though his body was lean and wiry, he now raised his right fist, veins bulging across his arms, eyes bulging with intensity. It was as if all the effort of the past decade had been poured into this single blow. When the punch landed, Jiang Yu's expression changed drastically. For the first time, his unmoving body was sent crashing into the chains at the edge of the arena. My dear brother, Jiang Heng stepped forward, voice calm. It's time you experienced what I've felt all these years. Right here, in front of everyone. I'll repay every defeat I've suffered. It's just ironic, Jiang Yu responded flatly. Someone who once held so tightly to their martial path would give it up and defeat me. I never gave it up, Jiang Heng replied. It just wasn't the right path for me. That so-called extreme path was too hard. Sure, there were legendary emperors before us. Grand Emperor Sandao with his path of attack, Grand Emperor Xinxing with his path of speed. But how many grand emperors like them actually exist? I told you once, I wanted to be like the Blade Emperor, to entrust my life entirely to strength. But it's too hard. I was just talking big back then. Deep down, in my soul, in my blood, I knew I wasn't like him. Some paths are dead ends from the beginning. Hard work matters, but if you're headed the wrong way, it's still useless. So a year ago, I stopped focusing on attack and started training my defense and speed instead. In the end, we were both wrong. The extreme path is just too difficult. Speak for yourself. Don't drag me into it. Jiang Yu growled after a pause. I'd rather smash my head into a wall than turn back. But you lost, Jiang Heng replied calmly. Jiang Yu fell silent. He knew, no matter what he said, a loss was still a loss. There was no talking around it. As the two spoke, the Sacred Spring sect master, Luo Changhe, slowly stood up and walked over to them. Master. Both of them greeted respectfully. You're both not wrong, Luo Changhe said with a warm smile. Relax, Jiang Heng isn't wrong. Sometimes, when a path doesn't work, it's okay to let it go. Choosing another direction might just open up a new world for you. And Jiang Yu, you're not wrong either. Some paths are hard, but if you stick with them, they might lead to an even greater realm. There's more than one road to success. Remember this, there are no eternal losers in this world. Only temporary winners. The two brothers fell into deep thought upon hearing those words. The 15-8 matches concluded. The upcoming quarterfinals would be the most anticipated stage of the tournament. All the remaining contestants were the top holy sons and daughters of their sects. With the exception of Su Zimo and another lesser-known disciple named Lin Hang, the other six, Shenyuan Shintian, Fairy Linger, Bailey Shao, Chuyang, Heavenly Demon Child, and Jiang Heng were all big names. There was no more drawing lots for this stage. Instead, the matchups were determined by total time taken in previous rounds. The fastest winners got to choose their opponents. Since Su Zimo had ended all his matches in a single move, his total time was naturally the shortest. He glanced at the 7 remaining contestants. Most wore composed expressions, except for Lin Hang, who looked eager and excited. Well, all right, I'll pick you, Su Zimo said with a grin, pointing at Lin Hang. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Lin Hang replied gratefully.
What for? Su Zimo asked, confused. For giving me a chance to make it into the semifinals, Lin Hang replied. So confident? Su Zimo raised an eyebrow. You're tough, sure, but compared to those monsters, I feel like I have a better shot against you, Lin Hang said with a smile. Who are you looking down on?
Su Zimo chuckle.
Good luck, then. Next up was Bailey Xiao, who had the second shortest match time. She chose Jiang Heng as her opponent. Shenyuan Shantian was third. He looked at Fairy Linger and grinned. If you agree to be with me, I'll let you go.
You lunatic, Fairy Linger snapped coldly.
Then I'll beat you into submission. Shenyuan Shantian laughed indifferently. That left the final two, Chu Yang and the Heavenly Demon Child, to face each other. As the match began, Lin Hang's spirit force surged. He extended his right hand slowly and smiled. I've been preparing for this fight for a long time. A dark yellow whirlwind of sand spun in his palm. Su Zimo's eyes narrowed. Lost God Wind. That's right, Lin Hang grinned. I know it's unlikely I'll win the tournament, but with the Lost God Wind, if luck's on my side, I might just make it into the semifinals. Chapter 137, A Battle Gone Mad. A swirl of dark yellow wind and sand coiled around Lin Hang's palm. Anyone who stared at it too long would begin to hallucinate. The Lost God Wind was extremely rare. From what Su Zimo knew, the place where it most commonly appeared was one of the 10 forbidden grounds, the Lost City. In that city, the Lost God Wind was everywhere. Its main effect was hallucination. For cultivators with weak spirit force, getting caught in the wind could drive them insane on the spot. Even stronger cultivators would temporarily lose their 5 senses: touch, taste, sight, hearing, and smell. After entering the desolate Meridian realm, cultivators began to form their true fate. Although they couldn't yet fully manifest its power, they could still channel part of it. Lin Hang's true fate was precisely this Lost God Wind. As he waved both hands, the roaring wind engulfed the entire arena. Though it looked harmless, it constantly assaulted Su Zimo's spiritual consciousness. Unfortunately for Lin Hang, he didn't know that Su Zimo's spiritual soul had been reborn from the God Meridian realm in his past life. This level of attack had no effect on him. As the arena became shrouded in the howling wind, Lin Hang's figure faded into the yellow storm. From the outside, the audience saw only a sandstorm sweeping across the platform, violent gusts howling past. Su Zimo slowly closed his eyes, just like he had done in the Palace of Paintings, trying to spot the single real maple leaf among thousands. He now stilled his mind to an unprecedented calm. The Lost God Wind around him didn't affect him in the slightest. Suddenly, a sharp sword aura slashed at him from behind. Su Zimo swiftly swung Shadow Tyrant, clashing hard against the incoming blade. A muffled grunt echoed from within the storm, followed by silence. The wind still roared, and Lin Hang, hiding within it, grew anxious. Maintaining this level of power from his true fate drained him rapidly. He couldn't last long. He quietly circled to Su Zimo's side and stabbed again, golden spirit force wrapping around his sword. But Su Zimo blocked the attack once more. Lin Hang's expression changed. Was it possible that Su Zimo could somehow see through the wind? Just as he was growing more agitated, Su Zimo, who had been standing still with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them and sprang into motion, slashing straight at Lin Hang. Lightning crackled along the blade. Lin Hang's eyes widened in horror. He's unaffected by the God Wind. He can see me. But it was too late. Su Zimo's speed was simply too fast. As Shadow Tyrant tore through the wind, nothing could stand in its way. Lin Hang instinctively raised his sword to block. Blood splashed through the air. A single arm was sent flying. The God Wind dispersed. As the scene on the arena cleared, everyone saw Lin Hang kneeling, clutching his left shoulder, blood pouring down as he grimaced in pain. His left arm was gone. Su Zimo stood tall, looming over him, smiling calmly. Looks like your luck wasn't that great after all. You did that on purpose. Lin Hang shouted in fury. Losing his arm meant he'd likely never return to peak form. Unless he found a rare, high-grade spiritual medicine, his strength would be permanently crippled. What happened? The third Grand Elder stepped onto the stage to assess the situation. Brother Lin, are you okay? Su Zimo rushed forward, grabbing Lin Hang's shoulder in feigned concern. Damn it! I lost control of my strength. Could you not touch my wound? Lin Hang gritted his teeth, face twisting in pain. Enough, the third Grand Elder said with a deep look at Su Zimo. Accidents happen in combat. Be more careful next time. After stepping off the arena, Su Zimo noticed someone had finished even faster than he had. Bailey Xiao had already defeated Jiang Hong and was watching Chu Yang's match. From the crowd's chatter, it seemed Bailey Xiao had ended the fight in a single move, so fast it was nearly invisible to the eye. Jiang Hong had been instantly knocked off the platform. Su Zimo guessed that Bailey Xiao wasn't yet strong enough to win so cleanly by herself. She must have tapped into the power of her soaring immortal physique. As for why, he could already guess her motive. Meanwhile, on another platform, Chu Yang and Heavenly Demon Child were locked in an intense duel. Chu Yang wielded his wandering dragon sword, with yin-yang energy swirling around him. His strikes were bold and powerful, forcing Heavenly Demon Child into a defensive position. The latter wielded a black longsword. Though at a disadvantage, he remained calm and composed, skillfully parrying each blow. On yet another arena, Fairy Linger and Shenyuan Shintian were engaged in a brutal clash. Shenyuan Shintian wielded a giant axe, each strike splitting space itself, blasting with devastating force. Fairy Linger's swordplay was graceful and intricate, but he simply overpowered her. One forceful swing trumped 10,000 clever techniques. His aggressive aura completely overwhelmed her. Heavenly Demon Child stepped back slightly. His true fate was a sword of slaughter. When he fused its power into himself, his eyes turned blood red, and he charged at Chu Yang like a madman. His combat style was sheer brutality, trading wound for wound, life for life. Seeing this, Chu Yang activated his yin-yang diagram, its phantom appearing above his head. He met the assault head-on, completely unfazed by pain. Sword after sword, their bodies were covered in blood. Yet neither flinched. Watching their insanity, Su Zimo chuckled. So that's why the Yin-Yang sect activated the Yin-Yang diagram, to help Chu Yang form his true fate. After all, Chu Yang was protected by the mysterious endless regret, which made him unable to feel pain. Eventually, the extreme pain pulled Heavenly Demon Child out of his berserk state. Even he hadn't expected to meet someone more insane than he was. Every move now felt like his body was being torn apart. The pain slowed him just enough for Chu Yang to exploit an opening and slash him off the platform. After the match, Yin-Yang sect master Wu Shaoqing personally stepped in to heal Chu Yang's injuries. The later rounds would be even more brutal. Under the full power of an Empyrean Meridian Realm expert, Chu Yang's wounds gradually began to recover. Back on the other platform, Fairy Linger had finally grown frustrated by Shenyuan Xuantian's relentless suppression. A clear cry of a divine bird rang out around her, and a mighty aura exploded in all directions. The crowd turned to look and saw a massive peacock rise behind her. Wings spread wide like a sky-blotting canopy. The bird stood several meters tall. Its crown shimmered emerald green, and its piercing blue feathers radiated a sharp, divine majesty. Chapter 138: Su Zimo vs. Bailey Xiao. The peacock's tail feathers were especially long. When it spread its fan-like display, countless blue-black eyes seemed to appear among them, vivid, beautiful, and mysterious. This girl's background might not be so simple, murmured a few small sect leaders in the audience. I wonder what connection she has to the peacock ancestor. The peacock ancestor was a legendary genius from 2 eras ago, someone who had once vied against Grand Emperor Tianqi for the heaven's will of the age. She was one of the greatest figures in the fairy spirit sect's long history. Looking at the massive peacock, Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. The Nirvana flame left behind by the wind ancestor did give you a second chance, a new body and a renewed qualification to compete for the heaven's will. But unfortunately, this era no longer belongs to you. As Su Zimo silently reflected, Shenyuan Shantian suddenly erupted in golden light. His entire body burned like a blazing sun, the sheer heat warping the space around him. The peacock let out a sharp, uneasy cry, its eyes full of vigilance toward the fireball-like figure before it. A colossal golden crow flew out from the flames, its massive wings covering half the sky. It hovered like a sovereign lord, gazing down arrogantly at the peacock. "We really are a good match," Shenyuan Shantian laughed. "Your true fate is a peacock. Mine is a golden crow. What do you think of my bird?" Seeing the golden crow descend, Fairy Linger's expression shifted. Her gaze deepened as she raised her green soft sword, and the peacock screeched before soaring toward Shenyuan Shantian. Shenyuan Shantian let out a loud laugh, soaring into the air. The golden crow behind him roared as well, its fiery claws slashing down with devastating force. A gaping hole was torn into the peacock's back. It cried out in agony as the golden crow's blazing light grew more intense. It pierced through the peacock entirely and hurtled straight toward Fairy Linger. Her face paled. She hurriedly slashed with her green sword to intercept it. The massive golden crow exploded around her, releasing shockwaves that rippled outward, lifting her entire body off the ground. Fairy Linger was thrown off the arena in a disheveled state. She quickly stood back up and looked at the platform, her eyes filled with a deep sense of helplessness. She had once stood atop the heavens, battling the man called Heaven's Revelation for the fate of the world. But she had lost. She thought that in this second life, things would be different. Yet this generation's monsters were even more terrifying than those of her time.
Fairy Linger at Jensli shook her head.
Her Tao heart was steady. She wouldn't be discouraged by a few losses. But in that moment, a sliver of doubt crept in. Could she truly carry the weight of heaven's will? All that is past is gone. The true heroes belong to this very moment. With the quarterfinals concluded, only 4 disciples remained: Su Zimo, Bailey Xiao, Chu Yang, and Shenyuan Shantian. Below the arena, Su Qingshan kept a calm expression, though a subtle smile tugged at the corners of his lips. After all, in the grand tournament of the Holy Lands, 2 disciples from true martial sacred ground had entered the final 4. As sect master, this gave him no small measure of pride. "Brother Qingshan," said Luo Changhe, chuckling from the side, "we might just witness an internal duel for first place in your sect this year. If Bailey Xiao and Su Zimo both won their matches, they would face each other for the championship, an all-true martial final." "It's hard to say," Su Qingshan replied modestly. "The remaining opponents are formidable as well. Since Bailey Xiao had the shortest match time in the previous round, she had the right to choose her opponent." She stood up and glanced at the 3 others still in contention. Then she looked toward the 3rd Grand Elder, who was overseeing the tournament, and asked softly, "3rd Grand Elder, am I allowed to choose anyone as my opponent?" "Of course." The 3rd Grand Elder nodded. "Good. Then I choose." She paused, her gaze locking onto Su Zimo. "Su Zimo." The arena instantly erupted in noise. The disciples were stunned. The tournament wasn't even over, and now 2 members of the same sect were about to fight each other? Su Qingshan snorted and slammed his palm onto the armrest of his seat. "Shower, what are you doing?" 6th Elder Xiao Ruoxuan, sitting nearby, asked with visible confusion. "Is my choice not valid?" Bailey Xiao ignored the crowd and looked calmly at the 3rd Grand Elder. The 3rd Grand Elder was momentarily surprised but nodded with curiosity. "It's valid." Su Zimo let out a chuckle and walked onto the stage. He now realized Bailey Xiao had used her soaring immortal physique in the previous round to finish the fight quickly, just to get first pick. As Su Zimo stepped onto the platform, Bailey Xiao glanced at Chu Yang and gave him a sweet smile. Then she turned toward Su Zimo, her expression calm and unreadable. Her thinking was simple. Compared to Shenyuan Shantian as Chu Yang's opponent, She saw Su Zimo as the bigger threat. Shenyuan Shantian was strong, but his strength was out in the open. Su Zimo, on the other hand, was like a thick fog. No one knew what he truly was, and the unknown was the most dangerous. Moreover, Su Zimo always had some kind of subtle hostility toward her and Chu Yang, something she never understood, especially since she had never offended him. Bailey Zhao's plan was, if she could defeat Su Zimo, great. Even if she couldn't win, she'd at least force him to reveal his full strength, helping Chu Yang prepare and defend against him. She believed that, with the Grand Empress's legacy, her strength was no weaker than Su Zimo's, perhaps even greater. A gentle breeze blew across the stage. The girl's jet-black hair was tied back with a pink ribbon, her white dress fluttering elegantly in the wind. Her skin was fairer than snow, her lips red, her teeth white. Her eyes sparkled like spring water, bright and crystal clear. "You know, this move of yours is pretty disgusting," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "The sacred ground gave you everything, and now you repay them with betrayal." Afraid, Bailey Zhao drew her sword, her voice crisp and clear like a lark in the forest. "Someone who's died once already has nothing left to fear." Su Zimo shook his head, still smiling. "I'll take responsibility for my actions," she replied calmly. "Doesn't matter to me?" Su Zimo said, glancing toward Su Qingshan below the platform. "But you're testing some people's limits. The Grand Empress's inheritance doesn't give you license to do whatever you want. None of your business what I do with my legacy." Her white robes danced in the wind as her sword began to shine with dazzling brilliance. Chapter 139, Holy Sky Codex. Bailey Zhao cultivated the Holy Sky Codex, a technique left behind by Grand Empress Hongtian. As a sacred light shimmered on the sword in her hand, strands of purifying brilliance descended from the heavens, enveloping her entire body. A sharp glint flashed in her eyes. Dressed in flowing white, she emanated an awe-inspiring aura that surged endlessly. She stepped back half a pace with her right leg, slightly bent her right arm, and charged straight toward Su Zimo. Her long sword sliced through the air, leaving behind visible white streaks as a piercing sword cry echoed across the skies. Su Zimo chuckled lightly. He unsheathed Shadow Tyrant, and blazing flames engulfed the curved blade. The air around the sword distorted with heat, giving off waves of white smoke. Blade and sword collided. Sparks burst in every direction as a chilling killing intent filled the space between them. With another grin, Su Zimo slashed forward with a burst of flame. Bailey Zhao was forced back 3 to 4 steps. Her eyes narrowed. Sacred light converged around her sword, transforming into the shape of a white cloud. Clouds swirling and drifting, it felt as though the very laws of creation dwelled within. She slashed fiercely. The cloud dispersed like drifting time, and she softly murmured, "Cloud shatter." As the glowing sword light shattered before him, Su Zimo gave a small laugh. "Interesting." He lifted Shadow Tyrant. A subtle but commanding force spread from his body. With a low growl, he declared, 19 forms of Tao seeking. Third form, 100 battles, never broken." The broken clouds sparkled with divine radiance as they clashed with his blade. Yet Su Zimo stood still, unmoved, calmly watching Bailey Zhao.
Sky Ran.
Her eyes focused sharply. She raised her sword again, and the sacred aura shifted. The air around her rippled and split. Every space her sword passed through cracked and shattered. 19 forms of Tao seeking. Fourth form, rising against the current. As though a celestial river poured from beyond the heavens, Su Zimo's blade surged upward against the current. The sword aura that could rend space itself had no effect. It simply parted around his strike. "Point kill," Bailey Zhao shouted again. In that moment, everything went black. Within the darkness, a single glimmer of dawn approached, swift as lightning, appearing in front of Su Zimo in just a breath. 19 forms of Tao seeking. Fifth form, windstorm rises. A storm of wind howled across the arena. Seeds sprouted, broke through the earth, shattered the darkness. It was a tempest in which all things were but drifting leaves. Bailey Zhao flashed, a gust of wind underfoot. She was suddenly behind Su Zimo. Moon slash. She raised her sword overhead. A full moon rose behind her, casting down vast radiance. With overwhelming momentum, the moonlight crashed towards Su Zimo. 19 forms of Dao-seeking sixth form, blade of slaughter. Without turning his head, Su Zimo slashed. A surge of blood energy swept forth. The crimson blade pierced the moon. Boring, Su Zimo muttered, shaking his head. He then unleashed 19 forms of Dao-seeking, seventh form, draconic storm. The storm kicked up a massive dust cloud. A dragon's roar shook heaven and earth. Soaring swan, Bailey Xiao cried out. Her face changed. Her sacred light surged, and she darted away at incredible speed. But the dust storm condensed into the form of a massive dragon. With a roar, it lunged straight toward her. The storm crashed into her back. She let out a grunt as she was flung heavily to the ground. She quickly stood up, her expression solemn as she stared at Su Zimo. Use whatever tricks you've got left, Su Zimo smiled. What about your soaring immortal physique? Why aren't you using it? With a cold snort, Bailey Zhao's body suddenly flashed with white light. It was a dazzling brilliance that seemed to outshine all things. The light surged into the sky, painting the entire heavens in pure white. A shadow, as though crossing 9 heavens and 10 earths, broke through space and time, descending to merge with Bailey Xiao. An unimaginably powerful aura coiled around her. Her long hair turned snow white. Her skin, her pupils, everything became white. She stood like an ice sculpture. And when she opened her eyes, those eyes, cold and sharp, sent a chill through everyone watching. She lifted her right hand slowly. The motion looked ordinary, so slow it seemed anyone could dodge it. But on the opposite side, Su Zimo's shoulder suddenly jerked back as though struck. He staggered 2 or 3 steps. The crowd was stunned. So this is the speed of the soaring immortal physique, someone murmured. Ranked 7th among the 100 battle physiques. No wonder. Senior brother Su is strong, but he still can't match senior sister Bailey, a disciple said, regretfully. The cheers from below thundered in unison, roaring like a crashing wave. Su Zimo closed his eyes. Spirit force surged around him. Time and space twisted and fractured. Chaotic currents swirled about him. As he radiated a faint blue glow, the shattered space around him began to heal. A meter around him, the space fully restored, glowing faintly with that same blue light. Su Zimo opened his eyes. A blue gleam flickered within. 19 forms of Dao-seeking. 8th form, deep blue world, he whispered. This technique had been inspired by him carefully observing the destruction of a minor hidden realm in his previous life. He created it afterward. In this life, he had gone further, creating a true fate world of his own. His understanding of worlds, space-time, and their control had grown even deeper. Bailey Xiao snorted coldly and attacked again. She was fast, so fast that she seemed to vanish. To ordinary eyes, she had disappeared completely from the arena. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. Her blade had been blocked by Shadow Tyrant. Everyone looked up to see that Bailey Xiao was already behind Su Zimo. But what shocked them most, he blocked it. Her expression shifted. She stabbed again. This time, the sword appeared beside Su Zimo. Clang! Another clash. Sparks flew from the blade and knife. Su Zimo remained calm. It's useless, he said. In my deep blue world, I am the ruler. Bailey Xiao retreated a few steps. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind. With her snow-white hair, she stared deeply at Su Zimo. She hadn't expected that her greatest strength, speed, would be completely neutralized. If that's all you've got, Su Zimo smiled, then it's my turn. Within his deep blue world, he controlled both space and time. No matter how fast Bailey Xiao moved, she couldn't escape his gaze. Chapter 140 Myriad Dao Lotus. Bailey Xiao took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes as the spirit force around her surged violently. A lotus flower slowly bloomed beneath her feet, lifting her entire body into the air. The lotus seemed to contain endless principles of the Tao. As its petals unfurled, the sound of the Tao resonated through the air, and all noise instantly fell into silence. No matter how loud the surroundings had been before, now everyone seemed to go deaf, unable to hear a thing. As the lotus continued to open, everyone's minds felt drawn toward it. Once the lotus had fully bloomed, the spirit force between heaven and earth erupted like a tide. The lotus changed color, turning into a cyan lotus. Bailey Xiao stood on the cyan lotus, her eyes deep and unfathomable. A majestic aura roared around her like a coiled dragon. But that wasn't the end. With the blooming of the cyan lotus, another lotus began to condense in front of her. It formed quickly, transforming into a black lotus. Then more lotuses began appearing and blooming in midair, 8 in total. Their colors: cyan, black, white, blue, red, yellow, purple, orange. Once all 8 lotuses had bloomed, Bailey Xiao began stepping forward in midair, treading a path paved by these floating lotuses. With each step, her aura grew stronger. "This lotus looks familiar," a disciple murmured below. "It's the Myriad Tao Lotus, ranked 11th on the list of the world's rarest treasures," another shouted in shock. "That's not the real Myriad Tao Lotus," said a disciple more familiar with the legends. "The cyan lotus of the Myriad Tao is still sealed in the sword-washing pool of our true martial sacred ground. The others disappeared when Grand Empress Hongtian ascended to a higher world. I've read records about her. Supposedly she comprehended the secrets of the Myriad Tao Lotus and created a unique meridian technique. No one knows if it's true." Bailey Xiao stood in the air, her gaze cold and emotionless. The 8 lotuses spun beneath her, each releasing a thick mist of primordial essence. When she waved her hands, beams of light shot out from the 8 lotuses, each one a different color. The beams intertwined and wrapped around each other. As the 8 colors merged, the lotuses beneath her also began to fuse. During the fusion, the sound of the Tao rang like flowing water over stones, soothing and serene, while the spirit force in the air became so thick it almost wouldn't disperse. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes at the display. He sat down cross-legged, placing his curved blade, Shadow Tyrant, before him. His action quickly drew the attention of the audience. "What's senior brother Su doing?" someone asked in confusion. "I'm not sure," another said. "But have you noticed? The meridian techniques he's using, we've never seen any of them before." As Su Zimo laid his blade before him, a dazzling light enveloped it. Shadow Tyrant began to tremble. Bailey Xiao continued walking forward in the air. The 8 colored lotuses fully merged into a single lotus of chaos. With a wave of her hand, endless brilliance erupted from the lotus and shot into the sky before hurling itself toward Su Zimo. Just then, Su Zimo stood slowly. The blade in his hand trembled faintly, shrouded in a deep gray spirit force. As that energy spread across the blade, the sacred Tao sounds from the Myriad Tao Lotus began to tremble. Bailey Xiao frowned. She could sense fear coming from the lotus itself. "That's the apex of the Tao. It's the ultimate Tao," said one of the supreme sect leaders watching below. "Brother Qingshan," said Luo Changhe with a smile, "for your son to comprehend the peak of the Tao at such a young age, his future is limitless." Other sect leaders murmured in agreement. Su Qingshan fixed his eyes on the blade in Su Zimo's hand, watching the gray energy with an intense gaze. As the Myriad Tao Lotus crashed down toward him, its massive petals filled with Tao resonance and lethal intent, Su Zimo smiled faintly. He whispered, 19 forms of Tao seeking, 9th form, Celestial Rift. With a powerful slash of Shadow Tyrant, the gray aura condensed into the blade. Space collapsed into eternal stillness. Yet, instead of the massive explosion everyone expected, everything vanished. For a moment the world seemed gone. Within the mist, a single blade cut open the heavens. And in everyone's eyes, there was only that one slash. All of existence compressed into a single point. Heaven and earth began with a single line. The Myriad Tao Lotus was shattered instantly. The glowing blade, its momentum unbroken, slashed directly toward Bailey Xiao. Enough, Shower admits defeat. A crisp voice rang out. A massive palm appeared in the air, intercepting the blade and smashing it apart. Sixth Grand Elder Xiao Ruoxuan flew in and stood protectively in front of Bailey Xiao.
Xiao admits defeat.
This match goes to you, she said, looking at Su Zimo. Grand Elder, that's not very by the book, Su Zimo said with a faint smile, slowly sheathing Shadow Tyrant. Xiao Ruoxuan looked toward Su Qingshan. He sat still, eyes closed, deep in thought, making no move to intervene. Shower is the Grand Empress's successor. Whatever else happens, you're still of the same sect. There's no need to fight to the death, right? She said. Su Zimo glanced once more toward Su Qingshan. Seeing no reaction from him, he smiled and nodded. If your status as a Grand Elder means you can interfere in matches at will, I have nothing more to say. As Su Zimo stepped down from the arena, all eyes turned to Su Qingshan, waiting for his response. But he remained still, eyes closed, saying nothing. The sixth Grand Elder led Bailey Xiao off the stage. She turned to look deeply at Su Zimo one last time. Somewhere in her heart, she felt it. Su Zimo hadn't even used his full power. With the match between Su Zimo and Bailey Xiao finished, attention turned to the final semi-final. Chu Yang versus Shenyuan Shen-Tian. Most people didn't know much about Chu Yang. All they knew was that he had recently become the holy son of the Yin-Yang sect. But Shenyuan Shen-Tian was famous. He had made his name long ago. According to legend, on the day he was born, a streak of divine light flew from the heavens and merged into his body. Later, people learned that the divine light contained one of the 100 battle physiques, the Golden Emperor battle physique, ranked 100th. Though it was the last on the list, any physique that made that ranking was nothing short of extraordinary.